You are listening to the Mountainside Podcast, and our returning guest for this episode is Marc Montoya. He's one of the most prominent coaches in the UFC. This is his third time being on the Mountainside. He was one of our very first guests here, and every time that I've sat down with him, I walk away a better person. I truly enjoy Marc's company. This was a great episode, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. You rolling, Ken? Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and start this thing. Marc Montoya, back in the house, man.
I know.
Third time.
I know. I feel privileged. I get 3 appearances on this ever growing podcast. I'm happy for you guys. It continues to grow. Your guests are continuing to be amazing, and you're in a bigger spot. Even I mean, it's all cool. It's all cool stuff. I'm really happy for you guys.
It's always a privilege to have you in here, first off. And I got to attribute some of that to you, man. Like some of the over half the guests that we've had on that are just badasses and we crush on downloads are all connections I've made through you. So
yeah,
thank you,
of
brother.
course. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You've had some good people on here, Derek Wolf and Coach Eric and Dustin and Vince and Josh. You've had some really good people on here. So
yeah, man, it's been awesome.
I mean, obviously
Jordan too. I can't forget Jordan.
Yeah, JK is awesome. You guys have had some really good other guests that I don't know, of course, too. But yeah, the guys I know, you're. It's that old saying, the people you hang out with is kind of who you become, and so they're of the same cloth, and that's. It's important to me that I hang around good people, and so it's cool to see. It's cool to see them come on here and explain their stories, and you guys get to chit chat a little bit and have fun and learn more in depth about all those guys, because those guys they're amazing people. So it's really cool to get to hear. I've obviously heard their stories before, but I still tune in and listen because there's stuff I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Cool. Or that's cool. So but yeah, it's my pleasure, man. I'm happy that has helped you guys, and they continue to get to tell their story, because that's what this is about.
100%, man. I'm grateful for it all. Just I've forged so many relationships in here, including mine and yours, and
sure.
It took me a while to realize it, because at first it was kind of like, oh, it'd be cool to have this guy on because I want to talk to him, But then I started realizing, like, man, how often do we actually get to sit down in this world, no matter who it is, grandparents, family members, or whatever, and have an uninterrupted conversation? It is like few and far between.
Sure.
To the point where I've started bringing my kids in here. It's something that I will never publish, but like have my 5-year-old sit in your seat and tell me what she's got going on in her world.
Sure.
With no distractions or anything. Sure. And they love it. But it's like, it's a real moment,
It is. And I think, you don't need a booth to do that. The problem is people allow for that to not happen. And it's really important that, you get out and you find ways to experience some one-on-one stuff. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love hunting and fishing and golf and, stuff like that. It's a way to connect with people and just get off of your phone and just be who you are and have fun and have conversations about nothing sometimes, and sometimes about a lot of stuff. And so it's cool that you found a pathway to do that. And this little box, that you call a podcast is cool. I mean, that's, whether it's here or in a tree stand or walking a trail or fishing a river or on a golf course or wherever it is, people can find ways. I think we do a great job of not finding ways to do that, and we allow for distractions to, give us an excuse of why we don't connect and why we don't do that. I've done it. I think everybody's done it, and it's our job to realize we're doing it and to find ways to not do that. And so, we weren't built to be on a phone. We were built to communicate. And when you do that one-on-one in person, when I was at church one day and they said it's hard not to like someone when you move in, and so from afar, sometimes you look at people and you see them and you make assumptions and you make your own decisions, and you don't know until you move in. And any time I've ever moved in and discussed just anything with people, you start to realize, like, wow, I like that person. Or sometimes you're like, I don't really like that person.
Right.
And that's okay, because that's what it's about, is figuring that out. But the communication piece is massive, and the lack of communication will be our demise one day.
I really think so too. I mean, to the point, I guess I'm kind of old school when it comes to this. Like, we don't have a whole lot of family time at home where we're all in the house at the same time because of sports and dance or gymnastics or whatever else is going on. But when we are, like on the weekend or something, you know, that old school sit down at the dinner table, have a dinner, no cell phones, nothing like that. I call it the Fed bucket, you know, like everybody has to put their device in the bucket and you sit down and you eat dinner.
Yeah, that should be the norm. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not that hard to get that accomplished. You know, I know with our kids, we've done that forever. We don't have our phones at the table, and we're just discussing. Sometimes it's not a crazy discussion either.
Right.
It's just what's up, and you're just feeling the presence of each other. And being in the presence of people, a lot of times is all that you need. But you need to have focused presence, whether it's saying something or not. And I think that's the whole point of what you're saying, is just to have focused presence, and that's cool, and that's where I've developed the relationships with the people, for example, that you just brought up, that have come in here and lended their story, and you've gotten to know them, and vice versa. And so is just having uninterrupted conversation with them, and making time to do that, and then forging relationships past what we just had in an introductory of an initial handshake. And so that stuff's really cool. And again, it's really cool to watch you grow and see all the guests that you have on, and your sponsors are growing, and it's cool, man. It's really cool to just see everything continue to grow and flourish. I mean, you guys have to pat yourself on the back and know that through consistency and hard work, good things happen. And the slow build sometimes is just what it is. I mean, you got to walk through mud to see the high mountain views, and so that's the thing.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy, but I kind of went off the wrong path there for a minute. Like we had so much success right out of the gate. That was awesome, right? But then I was like, started looking at like, God, I got to keep up. I got to get these big guys in. I got to have these big comics or Rogan or like I instantly went into that mode. And not that I wouldn't want to have those guys on, but it took like maybe a good 10 or 12 episodes where I was just like chasing it, and it was like stressful and just a bunch of bullshit. And I was like, you know what? I should be doing this for myself. So now it's just a total selfish thing. It's like who I want to talk to. And those are the best interactions that we have, I think.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Because
awesome.
I think that it hasn't been easy either, but I encourage anybody that's thinking about doing this, do it, man. It's well worth it, whether you're making money or not, or just having a platform to voice your opinions. Pretty awesome too, so.
Well, and I think that is part of the definition of grit, right? Is you have grit. Sometimes when you think of grit, you just think of toughness and you think of that kind of thing, but grit really is just withstanding all the obstacles to stay focused on the goal at hand. I mean, you're having grit to do that, and a lot of times you're eating a shit sandwich as you go through it, and it's but does that derail you, or does that motivate you to keep going? And that's the thing, is you guys have shown some grit to get to where you're at, and to grow into a different spot, bigger spot, more conducive to what you wanted, and all that stuff has to start from ground zero, and it's cool to see. So thanks again for having me on. It's always a privilege and pleasure being here.
Yeah, man, I'm always inspired when you're in here, so that's why you keep coming back. I'd have you once a week if I could. You're busy guys, and especially right now, man, you've been dealing with a lot, just a lot of personal stuff. The gym's cranking bigger than it's ever been. I think that you probably find a lot of that relationship building in the gym. Like, I know I do when I'm at jiu-jitsu or something. It's like you have a common bond with somebody when you're trying to choke them, or maybe you're getting choked,
The purity of mixed martial arts is hard to describe unless you go do it, because it's very humbling, and I feel like people need to be humbled. We all need to be humbled so that we can figure out pathways, and it's the purity of getting on the mat and still leaving slightly delusional even after you got choked 22 times that day, that you're still a bad MF, you know? And so those are things that the purity of that is hard to explain unless you go do that, because, you know, life's really about submission and obedience and consistency. And ultimately that's what jiu-jitsu is, for example, or mixed martial arts, or having a great podcast or relationship or what have you. And so, you know, those are things that you learn on the mat, and a lot of times you leave with a sore elbow because you were unwilling to submit. And you know, the purity of jiu-jitsu, for example, is that if they don't tap, you could kill them, or you could break a limb. And so it's forcing you to humble yourself to learn how to defend against that and or attack that, and leave the mat being humbled, but also not being derailed to come back. And I mean, there's so many parallels from the mat to life. We've talked about this many times. It's interesting, but yeah, you know, whether it's life or training or work or relationships or faith or whatever it is, that stuff is, it's a great teaching tool to just learn who you are. And you know, character absolutely is built, but ultimately it's revealed. And so that's what I love about it, or one of the things I should say that I love about it.
Yeah, me too. I think that's the biggest reason why I keep going back. And it was very humbling to go back, because I took about a year and some change off. I mean, just between the pandemic and I was busy with this, and like my schedule wouldn't allow me to go in to take some classes, which is a poor excuse, but but now I finally talked one of the jiu-jitsu gyms up here into like, hey, how about a lunch roll? You know, like, because I could leave for a lunch break.
There you go.
So yeah, that's been great.
Good for you.
Yeah, how's life been for you, man? Have you been
doing
all right?
Yeah, life's been a little interesting. You know, I had a lot of life stuff go on here last September. Last September, I was getting ready to go archery hunting in Alaska. I was going to hunt black bear and grizzly bear with my brother and my dad. Kind of trip of a lifetime that my dad set up for my brother and I and himself, and something my dad's wanted to do forever. And so, you know, we were gung-ho about that. I was out at his place in Boulder. He has about 15 acres in Boulder there with him and his wife, and he's got a cool 3D archery setup there. And so I went out there, took the family out there in September, and I was getting ready for that hunt, and I actually got stung by a bee on my like right thigh. And while I was shooting archery, they were kind of hanging out in some of those archery targets, you know, and just being assholes, and one just smoked me, you know. And so, which whatever, no biggie. And I finished, you know, getting my bow sighted in and what have you, and I went and that was a Sunday, and so I went back to the gym on Monday, of course, trained on Monday, Tuesday. My leg was swelling up, and you know, all the years that I've trained on the mat, 20 plus years of training on the mat, I've never had an infection from training.
No staph?
No,
or anything?
sometimes,
Really?
you know, staph can happen to guys, but I've never ever had any of that. I've only 3 times in my life had ringworm, so like never anything.
Thank God.
Yeah, never anything major, you know. And so, you know, and if you're going to go rub elbows with someone constantly like that stuff unfortunately will happen. And you know, we have staph on our body, and so it's just part of it. But the thing is I never had an infection like that, and so I went in a couple days later to the urgent care, and I said, hey, you know, I don't know what's going on with my leg, but this doesn't look good. And they're like, yeah, it looks like you have some type of infection. I told them I got stung by a bee, and they're like, yeah, you know, that bee sting potentially was just a pathway for an infection to get in potentially, and we'll put you on some antibiotics. And I said, all right. And so she made a big circle around where the bee sting originally was, and said, if this redness gets past the circle that I just highlighted with a marker, you need to come back in. And I was like, all right. And so 2 days later, that thing was way past the circle she had made. So I was like, man, I'm going to have to go back in. And I went back in, and they said, yeah, that infection is continuing to grow and spread. And now it was like creating inflammation all the way from mid thigh to my foot. And and it was getting super red, and I was like, man, this is crazy. And so they said, hey, let's put you on a different antibiotic. I said, listen, I'm getting ready to go to Alaska in the middle of nowhere to hunt, bear with my bow. Am I going to be able to go on this trip? Because I'm not missing this thing. And so they're like, yeah, we hope so. Let's put you on these antibiotics. Hopefully it gets better. Well, luckily it started to get better, but I got new antibiotics. That night, I never once in my life have left a weapon in my truck, ever. I take, I have my concealed carry permit, and I take weapons, but I never leave them in my truck overnight, ever.
It's smart. And so, I think a lot of people do. Just throw it on the seat or in the console or something, and good luck.
I've never done that. I was shooting my bow just to continue to stay ready, and I left my bow case in my back of my truck, only because I was in the middle of this infection thing, and I lost sight of the fact that I had my bow case in the back of my truck. Well, in the bow case, I had my spotting scope, I had my binoculars, my rangefinder, I had, of course, my bow and all my arrows, all my releases, all the stuff that you would carry. So that morning, I wake up and I have a message from my neighbor, and he says, hey man, your back window shattered on your truck. Looks like someone might have broken into your truck. And immediately I was like, oh no. And I remembered at that point, I didn't remember up until then, but at that point I was like, man, I left my freaking bow in my truck last night. And so I went out there, and of course they stole all that stuff. And I was leaving to go to Alaska in 3 days. And
this happened in
September. Yeah. And I was like, oh man.
That's like the worst month.
How am I going to replace my bow, binoculars, spotting scope, rangefinder, release, get arrows, all these?
It's not even a money thing at that point. You have so much time you're set up and just tuning in a bow and like shooting it and then shooting it with broadheads. And for people that don't understand archery, you want all that shit done 6 months before you even start drawing on an animal.
For sure.
At least. And to go get a new bow 3 days and a new release, that's the other thing. Like the release is one of the harder parts, because now the release I had is the same brand, but they came out with the new model. So it's not the same, And so all these things are new. The binoculars function differently. The rangefinder is the same brand, but it's different. The all the stuff. And I was like, man, I was panicking, because I was like, okay, not only do I need to go get my window fixed on my truck, but how am I going to find all the stuff I need? My bow was obviously a few years old. It wasn't brand new, but it wasn't old either. It was a few years old. And so, with the help of family and friends, I said, hey man, we're going to have to kind of divide and conquer here. The one thing you guys can't do is to go shoot some bows, but if you can help me research and find this equipment, I'll go ahead and, you guys, if you can go all over obviously the Denver metro area and pick this stuff up, that would be amazing. And so between my friends and family, they obviously helped me out a ton. I went and shot a bow, found one, obviously not the same one I had, found some releases, built some arrows, and the whole thing. And so in the middle of all this, I'm battling the staph infection, and I'm thinking, man, is this like an omen? I shouldn't go do this trip, or what? What's going on? But I'm like, nah, man, this is just part of what it is. Can't miss out on
that. I'm not missing this. And so I go to Alaska. We have an amazing time. I'm on antibiotics. Didn't feel great. Didn't feel 100%, but we went there. Had an amazing time. I was able to shoot a nice black bear with my bow. My dad and brother were out there and shot some 2 nice grizzly bear, and so it was fun, man. And so we went and we just had a blast. It was the coldest hunt I've ever done. It's the hardest hunt I think I've ever done. And
I saw some of your posts, man.
It was gnarly. Like it was not an easy hunt. Between just the amount of flights that you take and all the things that you're doing. The weather, we never once had a day where I saw the sun. I never saw the sun in 2 weeks when we were there. It was cold. It was brutal. And so it was fun. Like we had a blast. But the staph infection at the time, I just didn't realize how cold it was making me feel. And just my immune system was down a little bit. And so
probably from slamming all those antibiotics too.
Yes.
That always wrecks it.
That was it. And then your endurance is always smoked with antibiotics. And so I pushed through it. It wasn't a big deal. But it was hard. And you know, when you're hunting the grizzly and the black bear, the grizzly bear especially are, you know, if you've never been to Alaska, the floor that we were on was on essentially a riverbed. And so we're in tents near a riverbed, and the river was only, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 feet, 10 feet away, you know, from where we were camping, because that's the only flat spot and dry spot there was. And so,
right.
You know, you're next to the river, it's cold, the ground's super cold. Well, the grizzly bear at that time were getting ready to hibernate, and so they're all eating berries at the berry line. Well, the berry line, though, is above the alders. And so to get there, you got to go through all those alders. And if you've never hunted in Alaska, the alders grow downhill. And so it's like this vine of just alders growing downhill. And
just you're fighting the opposite direction,
it's unbelievable.
Right? Yeah.
And so once you get to the berry line, which is where most of the grizzly are, then you hit that snow line, and then that's where the high mountain peaks are, and you'll find Dall sheep and, you know, moose and all those. You'll find animals kind of in a mixture of like on the floor of the valleys, and then around that berry line up into, you know, like the Dall sheep are up there on the peaks, and so are the mountain goat, you know. And so it's crazy to see and just experience all that. And I was doing all that with brand new equipment. So like, for example, I pulled out my spotting scope. I had my spotting scope for years. Mm-hmm. It's the same brand, same everything. You know, it's a Vortex. It's a great model.
They make badass stuff.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I go and I'm trying to set this thing up, and I'm like, man, this does not fit on this tripod the same way the other one did. And the adjustments were similar, but they weren't. And I was so frustrated. I was like, man, this is unbelievable right now. My binoculars are great, but I'm like, they're just, nothing felt familiar was the problem. And imagine me trying to set up my bow with basically 2 days to go. And I was in straight panic mode. And you usually go and shoot my bow and have a blast, and it's kind of zen feeling. And even if it's off a little bit, who cares? And you go back and grab an Allen wrench and you fix some stuff, and you go back and do it again, and it's no biggie, you know?
Well, it's hard when you're hunting too, because you're not it's not like you're going to the 3D range and you're shooting 40 targets, right? You're out hiking around with your bow. It's not like, hey, I'm going to throw a few arrows to loosen up before I shoot this elk. You might not have shot your bow in 6 days if you're backpack hunting or something, right? It's
sure,
like, yeah.
Sure. And the familiarity of it is crazy. And so, you know, the release didn't carry the same. It was just all kinds of stuff. And so, but anyway, we went out there, had a blast. It was a hell of a time. My brother and my dad, we got a great experience together. The weather was shitty, but it was still fun. You know, when you look back at it, it's always the suck that you remember, but you endured it, and you're like, okay, I got through that. And then we all were successful with animals, so that was awesome. And so it was fun to go out there and do that, and just have a blast with that. So anyway, we get back, and you know, the staph infection, I went through the cycle of my antibiotics. Everything looks good. And a couple weeks later, my knee is kind of swollen on the same side where I had the infection. And sometimes I have bursitis in my right knee from just training and just accumulation of getting old, right? And so
is bursitis like arthritis, or is it?
It's like your bursa sac in your knee, and it swells up and it gets inflammation. In the past, I've had them drain that out, and then, you know, it chills out and you're fine. And so it's nothing major. It's like a bursa sac in your elbow, very similar in your knee. So it's just from overuse, essentially. I got some miles on me, you know. So
I'm starting to figure that out myself too. I'm like, I went to the doctor the other day because the AC joint was just killing me. He's like, yeah, that's just arthritis, bro. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, you just got to live with it. It's like, okay.
All right. Chalk that one up. And then a gray hair sprouted out in your beard.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I get this inflammation in my knee. I think it's bursitis. I go back to the ER. They say, yeah, we're not sure. They pull up the history. Hey, you had an infection here. Just in case, let's give you some antibiotics in case, the infection is resurfacing. Okay, fine. If this doesn't get better in a couple days, come back. Okay, fine. So a couple days goes by. It's getting way worse. So I'm like, man, this is not good again. And I went in on a Wednesday and they said, let's change your antibiotics. But if this isn't good by Friday, you need to go to the ER, not come back to urgent care. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. That's all right. So Friday comes and I'm in terrible shape. My foot is so swollen I can't put my shoe on. My leg is swollen that it's like my pants are crazy tight and it's turning red. I'm like, this is not good. So I go to sparring to the gym, go in, and the team's sparring on Friday morning. So I went in, and I've never done this before, but I sat down at the cage the whole time in a chair and just sat there and coached rather than, being up and moving around, talking to guys and doing what we normally do during sparring. And so I sat there, and I just remember I was
That must have been so hard on you.
Oh, it was rough. It was rough. And all the guys are like, man, you all right? And I'm like, I don't know. And then they look at my leg, and they'd be like, get the hell out of here, And so anyway, I go to the ER. We sat in the ER for almost 8 hours. It was so busy that afternoon. But when one of the nurses came by about 6 hours in, she saw my foot and she was like, oh my goodness. She goes, that's so bad that we need to put you on an IV drip in the waiting room and you're not going home. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not going home. And I haven't spent the night in the hospital ever. And so I was like, really? She's like, no, you're not going home. So they eventually admit me into a room. Doc comes in the next day on Saturday. He looks at it. He's like, hey, let's give this one more day. But I think we're going to need to do surgery on that and lance that open and flush that thing out.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. So what I didn't know is when I came into the ER room, because I've been battling an infection for a month, my kidneys were at the beginning stages of going into failure. And so they noticed that, they recognized that from the blood they had taken and all the stuff they were doing when I was there overnight. So they recommended that I get an ultrasound done on my stomach and on my kidneys. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So they do this ultrasound on Saturday. Sunday I go in, they lance my knee open, flush it out with 9 liters of solution, and and hook this vacuum thing up to my knee so that it keeps the moisture out of there and this skin can heal, right? And so I got this machine hooked to me that you can't go anywhere with. It's like a ball and chain, right? The funny part is one of my coaches that he's an awesome dude, but I talk major shit to him. His name's Randy Caruso. I said, this thing's like a pain in the ass, like Caruso. So I named that thing Caruso, So I'd go to the bathroom and be like, come on, Caruso, we're going to the bathroom, and I'd have to pick this stupid thing up. It was like a wound vac thing, And so anyway, that was Sunday. Monday, this doctor I'd never seen came in, and my 2 kids and my wife were in the room. And the doctor says to me, she's like, hey, I want to talk to you. Are you sure it's okay if they're here? And I'm thinking to myself, like, why would it matter if they're here? It's a staph infection. Who cares? No, of course I don't mind, And so she says to me, well, we did an ultrasound on your kidneys on Saturday, and we found a mass in your right kidney. I was like, a mass? What kind of mass, She's like, well, we think it's cancer, a cancerous mass. We never know for sure. She's like, but I've done this a long time, and based on what we're seeing, it's appearing to be cancer. And I was like, what? And so right then and there, I'm thinking, hold on a second, I have cancer, And so she's like, I can't guarantee it. Of course the liability, they're not going to say 100%, but I could see in her face, like, she's like, yo, dude, this is cancer. And so I said, listen, don't bullshit me. Is this cancer or what's the deal? She's like, I can't, but she's also like, I've done this a long time. And when we see a mass like that has blood flow to it, a high percentage of the time that's cancer. And so I'm just sitting there kind of dumbfounded, like, wait, I have cancer and in my kidney? And she's like, yeah. And so, of course, my family is scared and upset and, looking at me. And the crazy part is they told my wife on Sunday about it when I was having surgery. And so she knew for like a little less than 24 hours, but she already knew that there was a potential mass in my kidney. And so she's having to sit on all that info.
Uh-huh.
I know, because, I was in surgery, then I'm out of it because you're, coming out of anesthesia and all the stuff. And so anyway, so then, she's of course pretty beat up about it. And then my kids are sitting there going, wait, your dad has cancer. And so that part was, I was just sitting there going, it was really a surreal feeling. And so, I sat there and I was like, okay, cancer. Okay, cool. I was like, all right. So, but then I'm like, kidney, I got 2 kidneys. I don't need both kidneys, right? She's like, no, you don't need both kidneys. I said, cool, take it out.
I love it. You go straight into an action plan already.
Yeah, I was like, I was just sitting there going, all right.
First conversation.
Right, with Caruso hooked up to my knee and
Right.
And all the bullshit, And so I was like, well, take it out. And she's like, okay, that's the plan, but we can't do surgery until this infection's gone. I was like, oh man, okay. Well, how long do we need to wait for that? She's like, well, probably about a month, And
Really?
I'm thinking, yeah. So I said, okay. So she said, a cancerous mass like this in the kidney doesn't react to chemo or radiation. So you can't even do that, and we don't want to biopsy it because of the risk of it spreading to any other organs, your lungs, your bone, lymph nodes, whatever. And because it's a kidney and it can be removed, and you don't need to, our recommendation is to remove the entire kidney, and if that's 100% cancer, get all the cancer out and not disrupt any of it. And so I was like, okay. So okay. I was like, all right, what do I do? She's like, wait, get better, and come back in and let's do this. And so, I was sitting there going, man,
It's a lot to take in one.
Yeah.
1 week, especially.
Right.
I mean, this all happened in the span of like a week or a week and a half, right?
Yeah, it happened quick. It happened, the infection was going on for about a month, but when I heard the news, it was less than it was about 48 hours of being in the hospital. So a lot of stuff goes through your mind when stuff like that happens. And a lot, even when I speak about it now, it doesn't seem real. It kind of seems like that didn't happen, It's kind of weird, but
it seems like it's happened all so fast. And can I ask, like, what was kind of, I mean, this is super personal, but what was kind of going through your mind? Because from an outside perspective, when I heard about it, I was in shock. I was like, this guy's in phenomenal shape.
yeah.
Like does everything right, eats healthy. Like, this is somebody that's not supposed to get cancer, right? But
No.
cancer doesn't fucking care, right?
Doesn't care. And you know what's sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've seen so many people firsthand that I know, loved ones, family members, friends, that have went down this road. And it's really strange to me. It's like the moment that you hear the diagnosis, you can almost make, and I'm not saying to judge a book by its cover, and this isn't a knock on anybody that didn't make it through cancer, but it's almost like you can see how a person's going to go through it from the initial reaction, or if you know them personally, it's
Sure.
like, man, this is not going to be good, or they're going to be fine.
Sure.
And I had that automatic feeling with you, is like, oh, he's going to crush this. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know it's still not
Yeah.
over yet.
Sure.
And you still are on the road to recovery, but it's just, I know for a fact, it's a lot of it, I think, is mindset.
No, it's mindset. It's also, I was very fortunate because when I went in and got the cancerous kidney removed right before Christmas. So I think it was the 21st or 22nd, something like that. But I had it done right before Christmas. So think about that. A whole year has gone by. The doctor said to me the day of surgery, the morning of surgery, he said, "You're the most healthy person we've seen in a year."
Really?
And I guess
I believe that.
that's a testament to I guess, me, but it's also made me kind of sad because I was like, man, really? But being in shape and, I'll be 48 in April. So, I'm not a spring
Really?
chicken. Yeah.
Damn, Mark. Good job, bro.
Yeah. So, that's the thing is staying in shape, eating well, taking care of my body. It's really given me the ability to come back for sure. But you never know at the time when you're going through it. It's interesting. But I'll tell you, one of the things I've shared with people is, not a lot of people, but people that are close to me, I've shared with them. I said, and I'll share it with everyone now because I think it's worth putting out there. Is I had a lot of people reach out to me that, of course, I knew, and a lot of people I don't know because of my presence on social media and the amazing job I get to do, which is coach MMA fighters and a bunch of successful UFC fighters and that. And so I have a social media presence. So there's people that I don't personally know that follow me and reached out to me. There was such a huge, overwhelming sense of people reaching out and just saying, hey, you're in my prayers, you got this, all those kind of things. Well, a lot of those people that reached out to me, whether I knew them or didn't, one of the things that they said is, hey, when I had this, or my brother had this, or my mom had this, or whomever it was, they said, they really made a transformation in life and decided that after this happened, they were going to do X, Y, and Z better. And I can absolutely appreciate that because that is a perspective that you can't explain unless you're sitting there in a hospital bed yourself going, oh shit, I got cancer, And so when I heard that, though, my first thought was, I'm not perfect. So I'm not saying I'm perfect. But I don't feel like I have to go reinvent who I am moving forward. And I can do things better, but I felt a lot of peace with where I sat. And so I feel like
that's very unusual. And I could see that just from knowing you and being your friend and your mindset, the Factory X mindset, your fighter's mindset, how much, I love your legacy and legend. Are those the quotes that you've been making?
Yeah.
And one of them was, and I'm going to butcher this, so I'm going to let you finish it, but it was, judge yourself by the people around you that look at you for the same judgment. Or I'm totally screwing it up, but
yeah. I mean, essentially you look, the quote is essentially, you look at yourself, through another lens when you're around people. And that's who your comparison of who you're becoming is essentially what it is. And so, yeah, that, and again, I don't want that to sound like I'm perfect and I don't need to change anything because that's not true. But I didn't have this enduring, like, man, I need to change my diet and I need to lose 30 pounds and I need to connect better with my family and my friends. And I didn't have that. I felt like I'm going to stay on the same path, but do a better job of it. But I have overwhelming peace. And if I die, I'm okay. And so I never was afraid of that. And I can truly say that because, you're sitting there, there's a lot of unknown. Right now, we know a lot about what it looks like now. But at the time, you don't know because I didn't know at the time that, because I remember having a conversation with my wife telling her, hey, listen, I remember thinking about this before, just in general terms, that if I ever had cancer, I wouldn't want to go through chemo. And I told her, I said, and this is before I knew that kidney cancer wasn't going to respond to radiation or chemo. And I had this hard conversation with her, and I said, look, between when the infection was subsiding and I was going in to have a surgery, and before I got all the info from the doctors, I said, listen, I don't know if this is selfish, but I'm not going to go through chemo. I'm not doing that. If I have to find alternative ways, I'll do that. And I'm not going to kill my body to then potentially live another year or two.
It wrecks you.
I'm not doing it. And so she, we had some heartfelt conversations about that. And then, I guess I'm blessed to the fact that I didn't have to actually make that decision. And so, but part of it was that, I feel like I have the ability or in the past, I've had the ability to connect with a ton of people, and I try to give everything I got all day. And so, I just had peace from that, and I was like, okay, if this is my time to go, it's my time to go, and I have peace with this. And if it isn't, then you have bigger plans for me, and I have a lot of people to still impact, and I'm going to do things better for sure. But I don't feel this overwhelming sense of needing to overhaul my life. And so, again, I always kind of, it's hard for me to articulate that because I don't want it to sound like I'm perfect. Cause
you got a full heart, man.
Yeah, I'm not. I do have a full heart. And so, and I feel like the things I'm doing are purposeful, and what I do on a daily basis, personally and professionally, have intent and purpose, and that I give 100, man. Like, if you know me, you know that if we're going to do something, we're going to do it hard, and we're going to do it balls out. And if it works, great. If it does, we'll figure out way around this thing, And so
I love it, man. You've truly inspired me to do some stuff.
Good.
You've inspired me to change my life and my life habits, because, some of that through the podcast and being able to sit down with you and listen to your mindset, and then get to know you as a person, has been truly inspirational to me, man. I want to say that publicly.
Yeah, thank you.
To the point, where it's like I had to reevaluate my life at one point, because I was slipping, bro, like straight up slipping, like, and it was just part of being a dad and being busy and, almost going through life with blinders on. Like, I've had an amazing career. I've got to go all over the world and, travel with amazing musicians and see some amazing stuff. And, I was just always had those blinders on, I guess, this was just the day-to-day of what I did. Then becoming a father changed all that for me, and I had to dial it back. So that was like the first major reset. But from then on, it was like I was so much about pleasing other people and taking care of them that I let myself slip, to the point where it wasn't like drastic, but like every year I'd gain 10 pounds or whatever. And maybe it's because my diet wasn't that good.
Yeah.
Well, some of that is I attribute to you, man.
Oh,
and just like, I think you got to focus. One thing I've had to learn the hard way is you got to focus on yourself a little bit to share the love around you. Because if you're not in a completely good space, you're not going to share that with somebody else.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I'm a massive.
Sounds selfish, but it's not. Yeah.
I'm a massive giver, and almost to a fault sometimes.
Yeah.
And I absolutely I've definitely put myself last before, and I still do sometimes. And but I've gotten better at that. But who I am is who I am,
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to change who the hell I am. Like, I'm a giver. That's the heart God's given me, and so cool. Let's roll with that. But I do need to remind myself to, take a break and go do something for you to refresh your soul so you can keep giving, And so
that's a hard thing to balance, man. Really is.
It is. It is, and it's not easy, and you have to have an amazing support staff to do that. My wife and my kids and my team and my friends and my family.
100%.
That's the support staff that has allowed me to keep being who I am. And so, yeah, when you said, hey, what was going through, I had a lot of peace, to be honest with you. I didn't have fear. The only thing that I was upset about is I was like, the road to come back to recover, because I've done such a diligent job of staying in the mix and staying in shape. I know how hard it is to make the comeback. And that's the thing that was not scary to me, but more like pissed me off, because I was like, man, I'm gonna have to do this comeback thing.
You gotta put it on pause, right?
Yeah, and that's I don't want to do that stupid thing, And I hate anesthesia. I hate being on those drugs. I just don't do well on drugs, man. I don't know. It just period. Like if you're like, yo, let's smoke weed. I'm like, I don't do great on weed. Let's get on oxy. I don't do good on oxy. Like I just don't good. I just know myself. I don't do well on that. We could have a glass of whiskey.
I think it's that native blood, man.
It probably is,
because I have the same issue.
Yeah.
And I have a minuscule amount, but it's just like,
right.
it doesn't do it for me.
Me either.
Yeah.
And it just puts me in a different state, and I hate it. So anyway, to just kind of conclude all that story, I went in, they removed the kidney and the cancer, and I was laid up pretty good. The most pain I've ever been in my life. I had never felt that kind of pain. Just personally, I remember how just crazy I was. Like, man, don't be a pussy, you got this type thing. And I remember having to tell myself that many times, like, dude, you got this. And but I couldn't sleep was the problem. And one of my things, at least that helped me a ton, is if I can get 6 to 8 hours of sleep, man, I could go crush the world with you tomorrow, but if I don't get much sleep, I feel like, because I go so hard all day, that I just need a little reset. And if you give me a good reset, I'm good, so which is what's hard about my job sometimes, is every weekend I don't get great sleep, and then I gotta catch that up, or I guess you can't catch it up, but I gotta figure out how to recover from that and then do it again next weekend, and so
right.
But anyway, the thing is I was, I couldn't sleep in my bed for, man, almost 6 weeks because of the pain, and I was sleeping in a recliner and getting 2 hours of sleep, and I was on oxy for 2 days, and I couldn't do it anymore, and I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. And I remember them saying to me, hey, you can't have ibuprofen anymore because you have one kidney, but you can have Tylenol. Yeah.
Is that still the case? Really?
Yeah. So you can have Tylenol or you can have oxy. I was like, is there nothing in the middle here?
Yeah.
Like, what's the middle ground? And actually in the hospital, the day I had the kidney removed, it was such a wild deal. It all happened pretty quickly, and it's hard to just download all of it. And I remember I had the surgery. I came back finally to my room. I remember seeing my wife and my kids, and I was in major pain. And I said, "Hey, can I have something for pain?" And the nurse said, she's like, "Well, you can have oxy or Tylenol." And I was like, "Okay, is there anything like middle?" She's like, "You can have Dilaudid," and I never had that before.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Which is like I think an equivalent. I could be wrong, but it's an equivalent. I think of like fentanyl ish.
Oh, okay.
So, and they gave that to me through an IV, and in like 40 seconds, I was melted into the bed. And right then and there, after that happened, they let my family come in, meaning like my brother and my dad, and
and you're fucking out of it.
And I was smoked. And I just remember them coming in, and I got so emotional. I'm not a big crier at all. So, but like when they came in, being on those drugs, and then just kind of realizing like what happened, sort of like it put me in the spirit world, like Young Guns reference, like I was in the spirit world feeling, and I was like, wow. They walked in, and I just broke down, man. I couldn't like control anything, and I was like in just like another state of mind, but I was also feeling everything. Like I felt presence there, but those drugs like put me into a different dimension, and so. I remember that only lasted, like the relief of that only lasted, and time right now is kind of jacked for me, but it was a short time period. I want to say it was like an hour. And so I remember saying, yo, I'm in pain again. And they said, okay, you can have oxy or Tylenol. And I was like, what's the middle ground? Because I wasn't remembering shit, And they said, Dilaudid. And I said to my wife, I said, is that the same thing they just gave me? And she goes, yeah. And I said, hell no.
Yeah.
I do not want that ever again. Don't give that to me again. And so, but, Yeah, man.
roll a nitrous tank in or
You're
something,
right.
right? I just need a hit just for a quick
something,
relief.
Something. So anyway, it was a crazy deal. It was something that, I'll tell you what's really cool about it is I've had such a outpouring of support. Again, like I said, people I don't know and people I do know. I scared a lot of people, and I didn't mean to do that, but I scared a lot of people. But internally, I was never scared. Like I really wasn't. I was never scared. I was never worried. I wasn't worried. Like, man, even I felt like my family's in a good position. I felt like my team's in a good position. I felt like my business is in a good position. I felt like my relationships are in good positions, and I just had a full heart, like you said. And I was never scared. But I was in some major pain. That's one thing. And
I'm sure.
To say that I'm a cancer survivor doesn't seem real. It almost feels made up, sort of like, but I got the scars to prove it. So,
well, you are, bro. And I'm glad that you're here, man. Like,
yeah,
truthfully,
it is. It's cool. And life is a cool thing. And I never took it for granted. I don't feel like, but I'm definitely not taking it for granted right now. And I feel like making every ounce count. And I feel like I did a good job of that, but I'm doing a better job of that now. And it's,
well, I've been seeing it in your deadlifts and
yeah,
fucking the treadmill. What's the sprint machine or whatever? What do they call those?
Yeah.
It's not even like a treadmill.
No, it's a wood
anybody
machine.
that's ever tried to run on one of those things, it's like you're either running or you're not.
Or you're not. Yeah. You're propelling it. It's not self-propelled.
Right.
Yeah. It's, the comeback is real and hard. It's not easy. The doctors have said that I'm totally ahead of schedule. By leaps and bounds. They said I probably wouldn't be back 6 to 8 weeks doing what I just was doing 5 weeks ago.
That's awesome, man.
I was at home for about a week and I couldn't do it anymore. And I said, okay, I'm out of here. And I went back to the gym and I started coaching. Of course, couldn't train like I normally do. But the last 2 weeks I've been training. I actually grappled full on yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so, which is awesome. It feels good to be, quote unquote normal. And it's been good. It's been really cool. When I had the staph infection, and I had the surgery, funny story is Chris Gutierrez was fighting Frankie Edgar in Madison Square Garden.
I was going to ask you about that next because
he
turned it up.
He did, and it's a fight I'll never forget. I don't forget any of them, but it's one will always be etched really deep in my memory because my team was scared. They'd never seen me down ever, and then I was down, and to see me bedridden for 6 days. I've never been in the hospital my whole life that long, and so for my team to see that, they came by. I had such an outpouring of them. There's a picture somewhere on social media where they all came by, and they paid their visits, and there was a big group at one point there. And
I remember seeing that. It was awesome.
It was cool, man. And everyone told me, the doctors were telling me, listen, that fight was in New York, and so at Madison Square Garden, and so everyone was telling me. Yeah, there's Jonathan. That's a different fight.
It was pretty recent, Jeremy.
Yeah, it was recent.
Yeah.
But they were telling me, hey, I don't know, my wife didn't really want me to fly, and I'd been on antibiotics, and I'd been in the hospital for 6 days, and I'd been major staph infection, just found out I had cancer, all these things. And everyone was telling me, I don't know, I don't think you should fly to New York and this and that and the other. And I was like, listen to me, I'm not going to stop living. And I said, what's the problem with me getting on the plane? And they said, the problem is that, you can die. Like you get on the plane from all the stuff you're dealing with right now. If you don't move around, you can form a clot and there can be problems there. And I said, I'm not going to be scared to live. I'm going to go get on a plane. If I die on the plane, then I die on the plane. And so I said, what do I need to do to prevent this? And they said, well, you know, we need to get you on a dose of aspirin and make sure we're doing that regularly. And you got to do it after you're done with your trip. And you got to get up every 30 minutes on the plane. And you got to make sure. And the caveat to all this is that I can't freaking walk because my knee just had surgery done. So they said, look, you got 3 options. You can get a walker, you can get crutches, or you can get a cane. I was like, you're not putting me in a fucking walker, cane. Dog. I was like, you're not putting me in a walker. And so I'm not getting crutches.
Yeah.
So I just looked at my wife and said, babe,
did you get a cane with a sword in it?
Dope ass cane. Yeah. And she was like, okay. And so she found me a really cool cane. There's one of them somewhere. Like if you look in the
go back up, Jeremy.
That's the videos, but if you go just to my feed,
click posts,
where Chris's fight is, you'll see the picture with me standing
a little
there
bit further down.
Like, see this one right here with the X?
Oh, there you are in the hospital too. Yeah.
Yeah, that one right there.
Yeah.
That was the fight.
Oh, there's your cane right there.
Right there.
There it is.
That thing's
I remember
dope.
So. The cane.
Canes are cool, man. I think they.
Bro, I felt like such a pussy with that cane. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was walking in Madison Square Garden limping with a cane. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is unbelievable. So, but yeah, that's the night right there. And, you know, I'll never forget that night. My wife doesn't love traveling. And I said, listen, I'm going. If you want to go, I'd love to have you, but I'm going, you know. And, you know, bless her heart, she came with me and helped take care of me. But, and, you know, Madison Square Garden, New York, that's Frankie's hometown.
Yeah.
That's his hometown. And to fight in Madison Square Garden again is such a cool deal. And I remember telling Chris, I said, hey, man, this is before we went out and fought. I said, I've been in enemy territory a lot as a coach, whether it's been overseas or just here domestically. I said, but when you walk out, they're going to hate us, man. I said, you know, they're going to boo us or they're going to be super
against
quiet.
Frankie, his last fight.
So his last fight, his retirement fight, and nothing but respect to him. You know, he's been such a trailblazer and an icon in our sport. But to walk out, I said to Chris, I said, when you beat Frankie, the silence will be deafening in this place. It'll be silent. And he's like, are you kidding me? I said, I promise you. And so I remember when he finished him with the knee, you know, knocked him out with the knee in the first round.
Chris didn't look like he had a flaw in that fight.
No,
like,
he's so good, man.
Yeah.
He's developed into such an amazing young man and fighter, and it's crazy to see. But I remember I jumped on the cage, and everyone was like, "How did you jump on the cage? And you have the cane." And I'll tell you about some of the hate I got from that. But,
for real?
Oh yeah. So, I jumped on the cage. What I did is, I'm a freaking athlete, number one, you assholes that were talking shit. Number two, I just pushed off the cane and I jumped on top of the cage. Well, when we were hugging on top of the cage, I said, I told you it'd be deafening. And he was like, Coach, if you speak any louder, they'll hear you at the top, you know? And I said, I told you, man.
That's
and
awesome.
So, yeah, it was such a cool time. 'Cause, you know, my everyone around me was scared, and there was a lot of unknown at the time because I just found out I had cancer, and then I'd been hospitalized for 6 days, and so, you know, my team was.
This was pre that surgery, right?
Pre getting it out, and so, you know, they really rallied behind me. Everybody did, and my family. And
I was shocked to see you there, honestly.
Yeah,
like
I got out
when
Thursday.
I heard you were there, I was like,
I got out
Mark
Thursday
is such
night.
a G, and he's got a cane.
Thursday afternoon, I got out. And I told my wife, I don't have enough strength or energy to shave my head or my beard. Take me to Jay. Jay actually is the barber that we have in our gym. Nice. And I said, I never actually had met Jay at the time yet because he wasn't in our gym yet. But I said, take me to Jay, where all the guys go. Tell him I'm coming. And I'm highly sedated, but I got a cane, but I need him to make me right because we're going to be on frickin' ESPN on Saturday, and I don't have the energy to do this shit. And so we went, and he hooked me up, and then we've got on a plane Friday morning. And
damn!
And
so you went straight to the Garden, pretty much.
Yeah, I
from
went
getting off
straight,
the plane,
and then we fought Saturday, and so. Yeah, man, it was cool. It was it's such an iconic moment for me as a person, and my friends, family, my team, Chris, and just the amount of time that Chris and I have spent together, and the boy he came in as from Texas and the man he's become is such a cool deal. And I'll never forget that. It was a very surreal moment, and you could just feel in the air like we weren't losing. There's no way. There's too much shit going on. We're not losing. And so, and to do something like that to an icon.
I was so happy for you guys, man. It was incredible to watch.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
So, it's been an interesting time. I've dealt with a lot of stuff in my life. It's definitely up there. It's not the hardest thing I've ever dealt with, but it's been interesting. It's been something that has given a lot of people perspective, not just me. And I'm not gone, so I truly believe that God's got a bigger plan for me. There's going to be a lot of things that come out of this for the good. And I've had a lot of conversations with God and said, man, use me in some hard ways, man, And so, because some of the lessons I've learned in life have come through some tough ass things that I've had to deal with. And I'm like, man, you really use me in some tough ways, bro. Like, does it always have to be like this, And so, but I believe he's going to use me through this. And I believe that people have been inspired, and I know I've personally grown, and people around me have grown. And if that's all it is, then cool. But I if it's bigger than that, awesome. I just know that when you get presented with something like debilitating, potential life-changing or finishing type disease, that it's very hard not to inwardly look in and be like, okay, man, have you done what you're supposed to do, and are you going to go out and do even better if you get to stay here? And so that's not an easy conversation to have with yourself, and it's an honest one for sure. And it's very humbling. It's a humbling deal to sit there and think, I might not be around, and I'm not even 50 yet. And so that's not easy to internalize, but it's worth internalizing, because it gives you depth, and it gives you faith, and it gives you a lot of things that sometimes you don't take the time to think about. And so to see that and go through that has been interesting. It's been very interesting. But and I apologize to everybody I scared.
No, man, thanks for sharing it, man. I think sharing those moments or hard moments in your life, and that's why I've really opened up and shed some light on my past and some of the crazy shit that I went through as a kid, and some of my struggles that I'm having on a day-to-day basis, or even with this weight loss journey or anything like that. I think it really does help people, man. And I think that if you keep all that, it's good for you to share it too.
Sure.
I think, because it also helps put some more perspective on it. Diving back to where you were just talking about having that internal conversation with, am I good at a good point? Do I have a good relationship and all that sort of stuff? In hindsight, and I think, maybe just in your day-to-day life, and obviously you can't sometimes it takes a life-changing thing for you to realize that, but do you think it's good to have one of those conversations with yourself before something like this comes up, so that I mean, you went into it with a full heart,
Yeah.
So it's like you felt pretty balanced in having that peace. But like, if you're a piece of shit and you're yelling at your kid, or maybe you're just stressed out in life, maybe you're living that corporate lifestyle and your boss is always on you, or whatever it is, it's like, it's hard to find balance these days unless you're truly doing something that you love, because a majority of your day is sucked up by shit that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a reorganization of what your consistent habits are, to be able to have a real conversation with who you are, because unless you're willing to chip away at habits and form new ones, just because you have this internal conversation doesn't mean that anything's going to be better. And could it be this first step to do that? Yeah, it could be. But I truly believe that the consistency of what you decide to do or not to do will help you build your perspective and will help you build your future. And so I was just telling the guys today at practice, you know, I was telling them when we were training, I said, the consistency of your habits are massive, because if you don't have consistency in your habits, then you always feel unorganized. And when you feel unorganized, it's hard to be somewhere on time, for example, or it's hard to make change, or it's hard to feel growth. So for the example I used with them today was, if your habit when you get out of bed is to brush your teeth and then shower, let's say, and that's your habit. If tomorrow you get up and you shower and then brush your teeth, you did the same thing. They're the same things, but you changed your order, your habit. Is your time management the same when you do that? And how do you feel about that when you're like, wow, the consistency of what I just did is being thrown off, and so your day starts to feel wonky potentially, right? And so I think some consistency in habit is one of the pathways to get there. Submission is another thing. I think submitting to our faults is big. And, you know, if anyone knows me, they know that I have faith. And I say this only because this is my belief, and I'm not projecting this on anybody, but we are born sinners, and that's hard to internalize. And I think a good example of this is, and I just watched a video actually of an ex-gang member speaking about this. He was in LA, and he gave this analogy, and I thought it was a great analogy. And he said, a great reminder that we are born sinners is, why does a kid, he was talking about his son. He said his son loves gummy bears, and he would eat gummy bears for every meal if he let him. I love gummy bears. Me too. Yeah, me too. But his son loves gummy bears, and every meal he would eat those gummy bears if he didn't force him to eat something else. And he told his young son, who's 3 years old, you know, you can't eat gummy bears for every meal, and he actually put the gummy bears up out of reach. Well, his son was finding ways to find the gummy bears and sneak them and do that stuff. His point is that we're born with sin. How does a 3-year-old learn that behavior? How does he have that in there? It's not like you gave that to him. And so, you know, we're born with that, and to accept that, to have acceptance of that, will help you find peace, because with that being said, we're imperfect people searching. At Red Rocks Church, they always say we're imperfect people searching a perfect God. You know, and so the acceptance of some of that, I think, is massive, because there's some submission there, and it gives you perspective, and also you have to have blind faith when it comes to that. Blind faith is a tough deal, and I struggle with that. Yeah. And so, I think it's important if you have a conversation about that, but I think the depth of it is way beyond that conversation. I think that makes sense. I think the depth of what you're doing is huge. If you want to quit smoking, let's say, you're probably not going to quit smoking a pack of cigarettes by just quitting smoking a whole pack of cigarettes. You're probably going to have to learn how to eliminate that stuff. But what happens when the guy wants to just quit smoking, and you hear the stories where he's like, I just threw him in the trash and I never smoked again. He just made a decision, and he submitted to his weakness. And he said, you know what, I submit to the weakness, but I'm going to overcome, because my strength is bigger than my weakness. And so, but he had to do it for a day. He had to do it for an hour. He had to do it for a week. He had to do it for a month. And eventually he's 10 years in, and he's never smoked. And he doesn't mean he wasn't tempted, though. Right. Because the temptation of that is constantly out there. The smells, or the weather change, or whatever sparks your habits that we
If you
have.
don't change it, you choose it, right?
You're choosing it. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is that stuff is important, but that takes consistency, submission, all those things that are really tough.
It takes action, right? I mean,
Action.
yeah. You got to
Action
start
is-
doing stuff. You can think it all you want. Like one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know where it came from, honestly, so I can't give credit to it or if it's something that's just stuck in mind, but hope is not a strategy. Like I hope I quit smoking. I hope I hope I can get in shape. I hope I can. It's the worst strategy you can have.
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
It's but I think it's a good thing to also realize how much joy that you can find out there, but joy really comes from giving back.
Yeah,
You can find happiness internally, and happiness is fleeting though, but joy, what I've learned over the years is joy really comes from giving back. When you find like really eternal joy, that's usually because you gave to someone else other than yourself. And whether it's your wife or your kids or your friends or your team or your work or whatever, strangers, where you find joy is when you give back to other people. And happiness and joy are not the same. And so sometimes I think we get that mixed up. And but the real search is finding joy, not happiness. I see this a lot.
I agree.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Happiness, you and I hear a funny joke and we laugh.
Right.
That's happiness. But that's gone in a second.
Right.
Joy is eternal if you can find it. And a lot of joy comes from giving. And whether it's your time, which is our most valuable asset, finances, food, whatever it is, those things, that's where you find joy. And I think if anybody that's listening thinks about times that they felt a full heart, it was when they did stuff for someone else.
And don't expect anything in return either.
No.
Like just give it for the sake of giving. Like don't,
Right. And
don't tell your wife you love her
right.
and expect her to say it back immediately or something like that. Like you should just do it unconditionally, right?
Right.
That's a gift.
And there's a quote that says consistency is the gift you give for free. And I think that's the only thing you give back is if you want to give back, then give consistency in a good way, not in a shitty way, but in a good way. Because we can do shitty consistent things too.
Yeah.
But give good consistency back, and then you find that balance, and so that's the, I don't know everything at all, but I've lived long enough and lived a hard life at times, and we've talked about my past before, but I've lived enough trials and tribulations and fun to know that there's so much fun behind all that. I think sometimes we focus a lot on the negative stuff, and and I always say this, you got to walk through a bunch of mud to get the high mountain view, but you got to walk through the mud to get the view. And so if you're unwilling to walk through the mud, how are you going to get the cool view? And so
right.
The high mountain view is what we're all after, and so, but it doesn't always stay. That's the thing. It doesn't stay. But a storm only comes and goes. It doesn't stay forever, and so that's why when I gave you that coin, we put that buffalo on there.
So awesome.
The buffalo's running into the storm, and that's what we have to keep doing. And so, it's life's an interesting deal. It's very interesting. And I feel really blessed to be able to do what I get to do, and to be around the people I get to be around, because it gives me purpose. And I've had to submit though to a lot of things to get to this point, and I'm still have a lot of high mountain views I want to see, and I'm still walking in the mud with a lot of them. And so, but there's a lot of purpose there, and purpose creates a full heart. And so, when you get diagnosed with cancer, it's not the end all be all, because there's purpose, and there's drive, and there's also resiliency to show myself, but more so to show, first it has to come from yourself, but then show the resiliency of this isn't going to stop me, and I'm going to get back and I'm going to be even better. And I know the guys around me sometimes, they like, I remember when I got diagnosed with cancer before I even got it out, how people would hug me longer, like hold me longer. I could feel it, and I'd be like, man, that's interesting, you know? Right. And, you know, like you just give a quick dab. But
it's more genuine, right?
Yeah, because people are like, damn, I could see visions of you not being here. Mm-hmm. And so the appreciation of that is real heartfelt. And so, like, you know, you'd say, what's up and whatever, and people would hug me longer. And I'd be like, oh, wow, you know? And so that stuff's cool, man. I mean, that's a cool thing. That's not a bad thing. Did it take some scare to get there? Yeah, but it's okay. And it's just a lesson for me to learn. And then if I learn the lesson, then others learn the lesson, and then we just keep passing it on. And it's a cool deal, you know. That's the cool part of life is that cool stuff. You know, you get some trailblazing, and then you get to share it, and then people get to trailblaze themselves, and they get to share that. And that's why you have all these cool guests that come in here, because they've done all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're really fortunate in that regard, and I really appreciate you sharing this. And it's crazy. This is the second episode that we've done on cancer in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you had a chance to catch anything that we put out recently, but I just had a conversation with Lisa Thompson, and she just published a book that came out in January, but she's a cancer survivor. She had breast cancer. But before she had breast cancer, she was in like corporate America working at IBM, and she was up in Seattle or something, and just decided one day, like, she didn't grow up. She grew up like in the Midwest or something, but she decided, like, I want to be into mountaineering, and I want to go climb. What's the mountain that's right there in Seattle? Starts with an R. Drawing a blank now. Mount Rainier.
Rainier. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's like, I want to climb Rainier, because she said she had lived there for like 3 months, and then all of a sudden it popped out of the clouds, and she was like totally taken back by it. And then a bunch of her colleagues were doing it that were men, but she was too scared to ask. So she decides, like, hey, I'm going to get into mountaineering, and I'm going to do this on my own. She made a bunch of bad mistakes because she was too nervous to ask for help. You know, almost some life-threatening mistakes. She decided that she wanted to climb Everest, was like one of her personal goals. And then she was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to go through all that. And she still kept that goal in her mind and in front of her. And she's the second woman in the U.S. to summit K2 after having cancer and stuff. Awesome. Just an incredible book. The book is Finding Elevation.
Nice.
Really good.
Good for her.
But yeah, no, so that was a total inspirational story. And then it's just weird coincidence that all this happened to you at the same time, and that we're having this conversation now. So I think
it's interesting.
I think that I know that I'm getting something out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the hope, right? Is that I get to share. Hopefully no one has to go through that, but you pull something from it, and you make yourself better, and shit, that's all that matters to me. I mean, like I said, I had such an outpouring of support. I'm very humbled and honored when I hear that stuff, because I'm just a regular dude, man.
But you're not.
You know, and so it's just like, it's cool to be able to hear that stuff. And again, like I said, I get very humbled and honored when I hear that stuff. And I think it's cool, like the story you just mentioned, you know. And I watch my kids, man. And my kids are they're just different breeds, man. I watch them, and they've grown up around the gym their whole life. They've seen what hard work develops. They've seen a lot of trials, even though you're working hard still. And I think that's what happens sometimes in life, is that you work really hard, and then you feel like you deserve a result back, or a raise, or whatever. And they've seen that you don't deserve anything. You earn everything. And when I watch my kids.
So true.
Yeah, you know, I hate the word deserve. I hate it. I always tell my kids that word should be cut out of the impossible, and deserve should be cut out of the dictionary, you know?
Yeah.
And so because I don't think we deserve shit. I think we have to earn everything. And but they've seen it. It's not me saying that to them. They've seen it from all the kids, all the fighters that they've seen, and the people that have. They don't have to be UFC fighters to be inspirational. I mean, these guys have amazing stories, and they come through and they fight demons, and they leave amazing husbands and wives and dads and moms, and go on to grow businesses, and they do cool stuff, you know. And some of them remain UFC fighters and do stuff still in MMA. But the point is that the impact this has had on my family, my wife, my kids, is immeasurable. It's crazy. I watch my kids and the way they talk and their mindset. And, you know, a lot of people say my kids they feel like older souls, and they have friends, and they do that. It's not like they're misfit kids and they don't have friends, but they also have a lot of older friends, and they've grown up in that world, you know. And so to watch the development of them has been such a blessing. And they're not perfect, but to watch that, and to watch their mindset, and then their mindset, to watch their habits, and then to watch their consistency, and to watch the stuff they earn, and all those things is cool, man. I mean,
forged in the fires.
Yeah,
man.
exactly. And I look around and I'm like, wow, that's a cool deal, you know. And I've said this many times. I grew up in the hood, but I didn't want my kids to grow up there. But my kids have had the luxury of growing up in the suburbs and living in the hood at the gym.
Right.
And, which is cool, right? Because you don't have
Bunch
to actually
of hood
live
rats
there,
in there, right?
So they get to actually go back to suburbs and then go back. So, but you know, they carry that as well. And it's been cool to see. I mean, it's been cool to see what my kids have developed from into, and what they're doing. And when life's knocked them down, they haven't given up. And that stuff is, I mean, that's the true measure of who my wife and I are, is what
leading by example.
Yeah,
right?
what they become, right? And so, and again, they're not perfect kids. Yeah. So,
and in their lifetime, I mean, you know, in everybody's lifetime, you're gonna have hurdles. Nobody
Sure.
lives a perfect life, man.
No.
Like, I don't care how much money you have, how many good friends, how much, you know, abundance of one thing, whatever. You're gonna have struggles, man. That
Sure.
is just life, right?
Sure.
And it's how you take those struggles. And I think, Jeremy, you might have to look this up, but I think when me and Lisa were talking, 1 in 6 people in their lifetime will hear the words, "You have cancer." Like, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know
At some
what the
point.
survival rate is. So, like,
Yeah.
just sharing your story, I think, and the mindset that you have and the mindset that Lisa has going into that, and not losing focus on, you know, what you want to do in life and how you want to proceed, and whether it was you with your faith or Lisa with her goals. And she made some life-changing decisions. I think she got a divorce. She was in a really bad relationship where she was just sacrificing herself to live with this alcoholic and take care of him, right?
Yeah.
And
I think that's good, because I don't want to overshadow that, in the sense of when people have made those decisions to make some life-changing things.
I don't think you were, though, in the conversation. You were really clear about that.
Because I don't want to overshadow that, because I think that's important, because you're learning from trial to then grow.
Yeah.
And maybe you needed that trial to grow, otherwise you wouldn't have done that. And I think that's massive. I think and that's cool too. I mean, it's not cool to get divorced. I'm not saying that, but
no.
if it's dysfunctional and you're not,
if you're not in a healthy spot, though, or a healthy relationship,
tough.
Man, it's a two-way street, right?
It's
like,
tough.
You have to help. It's a team.
It is a team.
And you have to like that person, not love them. You have to like them, you know? Like, that's what I always think about. Like, what am I going to say to the kid that walks up to me and tells me that he wants my daughter's hand?
I know.
In marriage,
I'm with you, dog. I'm with you.
I'm thinking den of thieves.
I'm first push kick him right in the face.
I'm going to call you, actually. And I want your top guys in my garage, you know, den of thieves style.
No problem.
Yeah.
That's easy to set up.
We're going to have a barbecue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's it's very, I think that's very rewarding when you don't have to be told you have cancer to change stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole point, right? Is that don't wait. Just like I tell the guys all the time, my team, I tell them all the time, why are you going to wait till you're 48 years old to learn what I learned in all the trials and all the things I've done wrong? If you'll just listen for 15 minutes at 23, think about how far ahead you are. You're 25 years ahead of everybody else. If you'll just hear what's being told, not just, like.
I think that's hard to understand
it
as
is
a kid.
hard.
Like, I never understood
Very
it
hard.
until I was like in my 30s and had
know.
kids. I
know.
was like, I was a dumbass. I wish somebody would have slapped me around a little bit more.
I was just telling
like,
James yesterday, dude, look at me. I'm 45. I've got the cheat codes.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
a
if you
fact.
Just listen.
I'll tell you exactly what not to do.
And I mean, really, I can attribute that to my hunting success, all kinds of stuff. I mean, the family members that I grew up around, the wealth of knowledge that I have learned through them, and just all of that, and
Sure.
manhood, everything.
Sure.
If it wasn't for those men in my life and women, I'd probably be in
Right.
prison or something.
Sure, of course. And I think celebrating people's success is a big deal.
Yeah.
A lot of times I've done this before, where you look across the street or on the internet or your buddy or whomever it is, and you get envious or jealous of what has happened or what's happening in their life. And maybe it takes some time, maybe it takes wisdom, maybe it takes that stuff, but I feel like it's such a cool deal celebrating people's success, man. Like it's, like I was telling you earlier, I'm so happy for you guys. I'm not
Thanks,
saying
man.
that because we're on your show. I'm happy for you, man. That's cool. It's cool to see you guys flourishing. I mean, celebrating people's success is cool. I mean, that's what this is about. We can tear each other down and be turds and be Twitter if we want, or we can celebrate. And I think that's one thing too is, don't just celebrate your successes, go celebrate other people's successes, because it'll help you with yours. I mean, it really will. And
That's why I constantly post about you guys, no matter what fight you're going to or whatever, it's like, I'm always trying to share that,
thank you.
To show some love and some reciprocating love. Because I feel like I get way more from you than I'm giving back to you. You know what I mean? So,
no, it's not true.
I got to tell you personally, man, I got jealous a couple weeks ago, and I haven't had that feeling in a long time because I put so much into this podcast and time and everything. And, you introduced us to Cameron Haynes. Like, I knew Cameron Haynes before, but on a personal level to where we were messaging back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you checked out his new podcast?
I haven't, no.
Oh, my
Is it
God.
good?
Yeah, bro.
Nice.
It is fucking amazing.
Because he had one, but then he wasn't doing it. And then he restarted it?
So just recently, from what I've gathered, and I don't know this for fact, but he retired from his full-time job.
I know.
And you're talking
I'm
about a guy
happy.
that runs a marathon a day or whatever his stick is, lift, run, shoot. But yeah, this is what he's doing now. And he's
good.
only bringing people in that like are inspiring or making change. You'd be a great fucking guest for the show.
I'll be like,
honestly.
Cam, what's up, dog?
Yeah.
Next time I see him, I'm
You
like,
definitely
you want me
need
to go
to-
on the podcast, dog? Yeah.
And hey, you can get a new bow out of it. 'Cause,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't want to spoil it. Just go check it
I
out.
will. I'll
It's
check it
called
out.
the Keep Hammering Collective. Michael Chandler was his first guest.
Okay, I did see this. I thought it was
And-
just a YouTube thing.
No, man.
Oh, okay.
He's got and he hit the ground running, like production wise.
Nice.
The video is unbelievable. He does a whole thing before and after the podcast where they do a lift, run, shoot with whoever he's going to have on.
cool.
Then he has them on the podcast
Good for him.
afterwards. And it's just,
He's a good dude,
It's
man. I like
awesome,
him. He reached out when he found out I had cancer, and
it's awesome.
and he was he's just a good dude, overall dude. I mean, I don't know him like I know some of my friends, but I know him good enough to know that he's a good dude, and that's what. And, talk about inspiration and celebrating success. Good for him, man.
Any interaction I've had with him, he's been nothing
awesome.
but gracious with time,
Yeah.
humble, and
Yeah.
just a good person.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's, and, like Joe Rogan's a good dude. And I don't know Joe well either, but I know him enough to know, like, you're not a shitbox, you know.
Yeah.
He's a good dude, and there's a reason why Cam and Joe hang out together. They're good dudes, you know. And so, and they both have had massive success, and it's cool to see, man. It's that stuff's cool. I mean, I root for those guys because it's like I want to see, you know, good people getting rewarded for hard-earned success, you know, and so hard-earned work, and so it's just so cool. That stuff's fun, man. It's fun to see. I'll check it out because I saw it on YouTube, and I thought it was just a YouTube thing, and I actually just saw it a couple days ago, and I haven't watched it yet, but I'll definitely do it.
I think he's only got like 4 or 5 episodes out, but it's the Keep Hammering Collective,
Cool.
and he's so fucking good at it. He should have been doing it a long time ago, Cam.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, probably not, but if you are, you're doing great. And but back to my story is that was the first time I was like, oh man, like all this time I put in, and like, God, I wish I could do it like this, you know? Like I wish I could do it Cam style. And I think that he's patient. I can. Yeah. I think that he's patiently waited to get to that point where he had the time to do it right, right? Like that's the type of person he is. So instantly I was just like, oh my God, I suck so bad at this. You know, I started, all those internal voices started running through my head. But the first thing, instead of like shit talking it, right, like the normal person, is I put it on a platform. I posted it right away. Like if you haven't heard about this, now you know. If you don't know, now you know.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
You know, and tried to shed a light on it. So,
I mean, I think that the thing is too is that you can, it whether it's now or a year from now or 5 years from now, you can. It's not if you can, it's you can. If you can't, it's you can. You know, and so. It's just, you know, everyone's timing is different. And so it's just, you know, this is your journey. This is it, you know. And so, and we all do it. I do it. We all do it. When, you know, I say this all the time, comparison's the thief of joy. It just is.
Yeah, it really is.
And we all do it. And it's just, it's inherently part of it.
I think those things make you level up too.
It does.
It's like, God, I could do it better.
You can do it.
You know,
yeah, you can. And that's, you know, you can do it. It just... all of our journeys are different. That's the crazy part, is our journeys are different. And just, you know, sometimes you look at your competitors, or you look at just, I don't know, anything, and you're like, man, I wish I had. And, you know, and sometimes it's not your time yet. It's just not your time.
Right.
You're not ready yet for that yet. And for you, sometimes it makes no sense. Actually, all the time it makes no sense. When you're like,
it really doesn't.
What the hell, man?
Yeah. And if you think the grind's not going to stop, it's not
it gets
true,
harder.
right? Like,
it just gets harder.
Look at all the success that you've had in your career. Does the grind ever stop?
No, it's harder.
Right. It's not
actually
like
harder.
I've made it to the UFC. I have X amount of fighters that I'm cornering.
No.
I'm set.
It's harder.
Yeah.
Because now they're all doing better. And so now the expectations, you can pile up all these things. You could say now the level of fighters that we're fighting are higher level, and you know, we got guys in the top 10 all over the place, and
which is awesome. I love seeing it. Yeah,
it's dope. I mean, but it's freaking harder. All those kids are fighting now are way better than the ones we fought before. Right. And no disrespect to them, but I'm just saying it's true. It's like,
the sport has evolved.
Yeah,
insane.
And the business, you got to run the business, and you got the staff, and it's just harder, man. You got to travel,
and the spotlight's bigger.
Yeah, right? Which I don't care. Yeah. Like, who cares?
Yeah,
you know? But still, it's it just gets harder, you know. And so, and I'm not doing it. Here's the other thing: don't do the stuff for other people. Just go like you said. You're doing this for you. You change your perspective.
It took me a minute to figure that out. It was like at one point I was doing it for other people, and then I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to be selfish here. Yeah. This is my thing. This is my creativity. I'm genuinely grateful for everything that I've had. Yeah. But this is my own greed right here, sitting here with you right now and hearing that story. It just happens to be public.
And you know, you needed that to get started sometimes, though.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. So it's not even a bad thing.
It's just a hurdle.
It's
right?
just what?
No,
I think it's just it was your start. If your start was you were going to do this for other people, or for whatever you thought, whatever the thoughts you had to start it were, cool. That was your start. It doesn't mean you can't course correct and change things and perspective change and you grow. That doesn't mean how you started was wrong. You started it. Yeah. How many people have been talking about for years they want to do a podcast, they won't ever do it. Think about where they'd be 2 years later if they would have just done it 2 years ago.
Oh man, I have so
or
many
whatever
people,
they're talking about. You know, it doesn't have to be a podcast; it can be anything. That happens constantly. You know, is just go frickin' do it. The only reason you're worried about it is because you're scared of what might not happen. What if it does happen?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the thing is that
You're not going to know unless you try.
No, and guess what? If you fail at it, so what? Who cares?
You learn. Like if you go back and listen to episode 4, I think you were episode 4,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, something like that. I was so bad at this. I've grown so much, and just in now I feel like I could walk in anywhere and have a conversation with anybody, and I felt like I could do that before, but it's different when there's mics on, and you know that there's maybe going to be 20 or 30 people listening to it, and then I nail a big fish like Marc Montoya, and I'm like, oh shit, at least 500 people are going to listen to this now. Next thing I know, it's thousands, right? And I stumbled all over myself. I interrupted people, but this has made me such a better person, just being able to sit down and genuinely listen to somebody and have a conversation and not worry about like what anybody else thinks.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know why I know I was number 4? Because my son and my daughter, they both listen. My wife, but my son listens to all your episodes.
Does he?
Yeah, and he's
That's
like,
awesome.
what are you doing today? And I said, I got training, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to go do the Mountainside podcast. He's like, you are? He's like, I love that thing. And he's like,
well, shout out.
you were number 4 on there. You know, that's what Wyatt said. And he's like,
I've been following Wyatt. He's a badass kid, man.
Yeah,
like
he's
I've
cool.
watched him grow up a little bit on Instagram and crush at football and all the cool stuff that he does. So,
My daughter was like, I'm going to go on that podcast. And
yeah.
I said, you are? You know?
Brooklyn reached out to me.
Oh, nice.
And she was, I don't know that I should be saying this on mic, but she was a little bit timid, I think, to reach out. Like,
Sure.
I'm not sure that you would want me on. I said, whoa, wait a minute. You're Mark's daughter? I was like, abso-fucking-lutely, man. Like, yeah, let's do it. And her story is even more incredible. Like, tell me a little bit about her. We spoke a little bit on the phone because I just wanted to talk to her and see. I was trying to time it around to where it works out good for her schedule and her running a race. And she told me that she was one of the youngest females to get invited to run the
Leadville
big
100.
one or the Leadville
100. Yeah.
That's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah. So, you know what's funny about this is,
and for people that don't know, the Leadville 100 is an ultra marathon, 100 miles at elevation. Like you're running over the Continental Divide twice, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the harder ones.
One of our guests, Jay Steinberg, has been on a couple times. He was actually my second guest.
Nice.
And he's an ultra runner.
Nice.
But yeah, he's told us some incredible stuff. So
yeah,
so I know what they go through.
It's going to be a monster, and but she's a monster, so she can go do it. You know, what's funny about this is, and it's all my fault. So what's funny about this is during COVID, at the very, very beginning, we were home, and you know, I was like, I'm not shutting my gym down, all these things. Like, what are we talking about? But I was home, okay? And Brooklyn said to me, do you think I could run a 5K? And I was like, yeah, you can run a 10K. She's like, you think I could do that? And she, up to this point, hated going running. I would take her out to go run, and she would bitch the whole time and be like, I don't want to do it. And she would do it, but she didn't. She hated it. And we used to always joke about it, you know, it's with the family. Like, Brooklyn, we're going to go run. She'd be like, oh, my God, you know. So
sounds like me. I hate running.
Right?
Bro. Fucking hate it. So
what happened is, this is a funny story. So she asked me, do I think she could do it? I said, I think you do anything you want. I said, Wyatt, go get your shoes on. We're going to go run a half marathon right now. She's like, a half marathon? I said, yeah, you can run a half marathon off the couch right now, no problem. No way. I said, yeah, you can. I said, and Wyatt's like, why do I have to go? I'm like, because we're doing it, dog. Go put your shoes on.
Right.
We're doing this
This is a family event.
We're going to do this. And my wife's a big runner, too. So I said, go put your shoes on, bro. We're doing this. He's like, what? And Brooke was like, a half marathon, let's just do. And I was like, no, you can do a half marathon off the couch, promise you. So we went out and we ran a half marathon. And my son was like, yeah, I ran a half marathon off the couch too, dog. But I was like, I know, bro, but yeah, that's her. She's a savage.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she decided, okay, maybe, she goes, Dad, do you think I could do a marathon? I said, are we really going to have this conversation? Yeah, you can do a marathon. Sign up for one and do it, you know. I've run 4 marathons in my life, and I was actually training to run the Leadville 100, and I broke my femur.
Oh, really?
Not from just running. It was mainly from accumulation of fighting and all this stuff. And just from the running, it didn't help it. And I broke my femur and I wasn't able to go do it. So
it's fucking dangerous though, isn't it? Like if you have a compound fracture.
If I compound fractured it, yeah, that would have been a problem.
Yeah.
But I broke like an inch by inch piece of my femur. So, and it happened actually running up Waterton on the Colorado Trail. I was like 18 miles into a run, and then I turned around, ran 18 back, and then the next day that thing, I heard it snap, and then I had to have emergency surgery, and then I couldn't do I was training to do the Leadville 100. So I've always, you know, like when Brooklyn started running and was into started getting into, can I go do a marathon type thing? She asked me, Dad, you've run some marathons. Can you help me with the program of running? And I'm like, of course. And so put some programs together for her, you know, just if you don't know what I'm talking about, just how many miles you're going to run today versus tomorrow in total this week. And then we put a schedule together to create consistency in her training, and then a peak and a taper, and then boom, you go run the marathon, just like we do for fighting. Very similar. So, put a program together for her, and then she went, her first marathon she ever ran was the Boulder Reservoir Marathon, which is a tough one to do because it's a constant loop. And so you loop around the reservoir, and so, you know, you're going around the reservoir a bunch of times. And so
boring.
Yeah, that's why I was like, are you sure that's the one you want to do? Why not do like a one where you start and then finish line, or maybe an out and back or something like that? No. But, you know, ignorance is bliss. And then, of course, she went out and did that. Well, when we showed up to the Boulder Reservoir Marathon for her, I showed up in shorts, T-shirt, flip-flops, and a fold-out chair. And I was chilling, dog, like full-on chilling, okay? Now, I wasn't dumb. I put my running shoes in my truck just in case. And so did my wife. And I told Wyatt, I was like, put your shoes in the truck. What? And I'm like, just do it, bro. And so, anyway, halfway through the marathon, she calls us on the phone, and she's in tears. She's like, I don't know if I can finish this, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you can finish this. You're going to do this. And so I said, how far are you from the start line? Because, you know, they kept wrapping around. She said, I'm like 1.5 miles. I said, okay, cool. So I told my wife, Jara, and Wyatt, I was like, yo, we should get our shoes. Let's just finish this with her. We'll just go do it with her. She's not leaving here until this is done, you know, even if we have to push her across the finish line.
That's awesome.
She just mentally needs to know that she can do this thing. And so, you know, I was sipping coffee, chilling. Some of the fighters came. We were talking. I didn't have any intention really of running other than maybe this might happen. So anyway, we went and ran 13 miles with her to finish. And I just remember how smoked she was the last mile and dragging her feet. Like literally you could walk faster than she was running, but it didn't matter because she was finishing something that she didn't believe was possible. And so she went and did that, and then she finished, and the confidence she gained from just that finish was amazing. And she's run a bunch of marathons since then. She's never the fastest. That's the thing. She's not the fastest, but her want and willingness to go do ultra marathons is impeccable, because she would always talk about them. Even prior to finishing her first marathon, she would go talk about them, and she'd be like, hey, I want to go run an ultra marathon. I'm like, you know, that's further than 26.2 miles, correct? You know? Yeah, I know.
You know, ultra means like
the
hardest fucking things
right.
you can do.
The hardest ones you can do. She's like, one day I want to do the Leadville 100, the one you were going to do and you couldn't do it. And I was like, well, then do it, you know? And so when she signed up, I don't know where she found this out. Maybe it was from the organizers at the Leadville 100, but they said that as a female, she would be, if she, when she finishes this, that she would be the youngest female to finish the Leadville 100. And so she is pumped, and she's been training her butt off,
so awesome.
you know, for it. And so, but it took a lot of little stuff to get there, you know, and running was not her favorite thing. And now that's what she, you know, part of what she identifies herself is a runner. And it's cool because it just took a little like, dog, you can do this. We can go do half marathon right now. She didn't believe she could do it. She did it. And now, you know, she's going to go run 100 miles. I'm going to help pace her, and some of the fighters are going to help pace her, my wife, my
That's
son.
awesome.
You
I
know,
should connect you with Jay too,
Yeah,
because he's
no, that'd be
done
great.
multiple, and
that would be a great resource.
he's awesome. It was funny when I was talking to him, you know, on the podcast several times. I have a personal record that I'm trying to do right now, that it's just personal. There's nothing driven behind it. It's just for me to get in shape. I feel like if I can do the body armor workout in under an hour,
Okay.
with body armor,
Yeah.
you know, and this might be 5 years from now. I don't fucking know,
Sure,
dude.
sure.
I'm struggling to even get to there. But so when Jay was in, I was hitting him up. I was like, yo, how do I run a mile faster? Like, how do I get my miles down to like 8 minutes, you know, if I'm coming in at 9:30, whatever. And he's like, bro, don't ask me. He's like, that's why I run to ultras, because I can run for a long ass time,
Sure.
but not very fast.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but anyways, Brooklyn, if you're listening to this, I'm looking forward to having you in. We'll get you in shortly here.
Yeah,
so like
cool.
in the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks. Yeah.
She
I'm
was
excited to
saying
talk
that.
to her.
And it'll be cool. It'll be cool for her to continue to just grow, you know, what she wants to grow in running and doing what she's doing. You know, she's 19. She's super young. She's got the world by the tail.
It's awesome, man. To
yeah.
start to have something that you're that passionate about at that age. I wish I would have had that focus. You know, mine was doing a bunch of dumb stuff. So
Sure.
Yeah.
No, it's cool, you know, and it's fun. It's fun to see. It's fun to brag on your kids. I mean, that's fun, you know. It's fun to say my son, you know, he had only played golf for less than a year, and made the varsity team as a freshman.
Oh,
you know?
really?
Yeah,
That's
you
dope.
know, and the kid's dedicated. The thing is that the lessons my kids have learned at the gym is that you're not going to get anything for free, so you're going to have to go work your ass off for it. And even when you work your ass off for it, your result isn't going to always be what you expect. And so I love that they're taking chances and putting themselves out there and failing and learning a bunch of stuff. And it's cool, man. I mean, I
so
tell my,
huge.
yeah. And my wife should be credited most for this, because she's the one that has done a phenomenal job raising those kids and helping them and just pushing them and taking them to all these crazy spots they have to go to.
Takes an army, right?
And, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and so those are cool things, man. I mean, that stuff, who doesn't want to brag on that stuff, you know? But in order to brag, you got to go do.
Yeah.
And you got to go you got to decide you want to become something, even though it's going to suck for a while. And
Yeah, and don't be that helicopter parent. It's okay for him to get their head knocked off
That's
in
all right.
football, right? Like,
Go
there's
ahead,
some
man.
life lessons in that.
Go. Like, if
It's
that's what you
so
wanna
funny,
do.
man. Like, I don't know if I told you my Derek Wolf story, but you set him up to come on the podcast,
Yeah.
which was super awesome, and I appreciate you making
course.
that connection. Derek and I are buddies now. You know,
Good.
it's like
He's awesome, isn't
he's
he?
a great dude.
Yeah, I love Derek.
So Tyler was playing DN this year for the first time.
Okay.
His first time full contact football. My son, 10 years old. And so I pulled him out of school early because Derek was coming up in the afternoon before I was like, he's the biggest Broncos fan.
Cool.
Football was something that I was never going to push on him, but he came to me and was
Sure.
like, Dad, I want to play. I was like, oh, shit. So I put him through it, right? I was like, we went and got a helmet. It was July when he came to me.
Uh-huh.
So we went and got a helmet, pads, the full nine. I made him suit up, and I was like, now catch the football, you know? So anyways, he went through some struggles, right? Like,
of course.
Yeah. I was at one point I was doing the Oklahoma drill with him, you know, and giving him a little preview, you know, like, hey, this is what it's going to feel like.
I love it.
So his first scrimmage, totally gets his clock cleaned and whatever. And so it was a big learning experience. And he's not a super aggressive kid, super nice kid, always wants to help people, is always afraid to hurt them. He's strong.
Sure.
But all the years that he spent in wrestling and jiu-jitsu and stuff, he was the kid that always just did enough to get by, you know, until football came around. Now that's his thing. That's his calling. So for him to come in here, his position had already been established. He was like 2 or 3 games in. So now he's understanding the sport a little bit. Derek comes in. I pull him out of school early. We went and ate lunch with Derek. Derek was so cool to him, you know, and that seeing a guy that's 6'6", what is Derek, 300 pounds easily?
Yeah,
probably.
He's actually, I think
280
now that he's not playing, he's probably down a little bit, but yeah, man, he's an athlete too.
Just a monster,
he's
right?
an athlete. Yeah.
And I think Derek, you know, gave him some good words of wisdom. He's just like, I think he just told him to punish everybody. Something like that. Right?
That sounds like something he'd say. Yeah.
So he's like, just punish everybody, you know, like if you're going to play that position, like just punish everybody.
Yeah.
So I take Tyler to practice after this, right?
Yeah.
After we record the podcast. And the coach had to pull him aside because he had like 7 sacks in practice. He's like, hey, we need our quarterback on Saturday, so you need to
He's like, blame it on Derek. Blame it on Derek. Call Derek up.
Yeah,
way to go,
awesome.
D-Wolf.
Like, so the coach comes up to me after practice, and he's like, what the hell happened? And I was like, I just showed him a picture of Derek. And that's all it took.
That's
like,
cool,
it wasn't like me pushing him or Derek saying, like, just the fact of meeting somebody like that with that stature.
So cool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
You know, Derek is such a genuine dude. I love that guy, man. He's he's a definition of just working your butt off. Yeah, he was blessed with, you know, his size, but how many people are his size and never played in the NFL? A lot.
Ton.
But man, he works his butt off, and in the off season, you know, he hit me up. He was the one that reached out to me and said, "Hey, coach, can you help me with some footwork and some hand speed stuff, and have it translate and relate to my sport?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And I've worked with Bronco players before, so it wasn't like he was the first one I ever worked with, but he's consistent. I mean, he would do it in his off season. He's not doing it during his season. He's not doing that stuff in his season, but in his off season, it was helping him become better. And this is not Derek Wolf first year in. This is Derek Wolf already Super Bowl champ, Pro Bowler. Like, even after all that stuff, you know, he's spending extra time to go develop new pathways and skills and just earning his way to stay in the league and do his thing.
You have to at that level, right? Like, that's one thing I've learned by talking to all of your fighters and some of the other professional athletes that we've talked to. It's like, that fear must suck of just somebody's always coming for your job. There's always somebody that's going to fill your spot. It doesn't matter who you are, how many Super Bowls you've won. If you're Tom freaking Brady,
I know.
You know.
Well, you know, and the fear can fuel you. It can also shut you down. And so guys like Derek, or guys like, you know, some of the guys you've had in that are my fighters or whatever. I mean, it's cool to watch because they turn fear into success, and they go create discipline and do it. And it doesn't become fear anymore. It just becomes their job. And the fear is what got them motivated to do it potentially. But it's cool because, you know, anytime I've ever been around Derek, I've been around a lot of athletes, pro athletes, whether it's in the NFL, fighting, MMA, UFC, whatever, baseball. I've been around a lot of pro athletes, and there's a good majority of them that are freaking douchebags. And and they think that just because they do what they do, that they're different. And Derek's never been that way, man. And he is different. Let's be honest. That dude is different. Like, he's a phenomenal world-class athlete. He has been one of the best at his position. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's a Pro Bowler. You know, he's got all the accolades that when you're a kid you dream of having. And he's still a dude, man. Like, he's still a guy. Like, you're like, "What's up, bro?" I saw him at the gas station a couple months ago, and we chopped it up and held the whole line up for like a half hour, you know? And we were just present in the moment, present where our feet were, and just chatting, like, "What's up, bro? It's great to see you." You know, I don't get to see him as much as I used to because he's not playing anymore. And so But we talk a little bit, especially about hunting, because, you know, we love hunting, both of us. And but such a good dude, man. And anyone that's ever met him in my gym, my family, anybody. I mean,
He's
he's
such a
always
great
said
guy.
the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
so
the short time that I've known him, we go back and forth on a regular basis, like you and I do, you know, now.
yeah,
So and all my interactions with him have been nothing but positive and good. And he's another person that's just gracious with his time and just a good human. And did he take some heat this last couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, but
it's so stupid.
Go fuck off.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, and I mean
I love
that.
that.
Like the thing is, why do you give a shit? And it's not like he did anything wrong. And why is he taking heat? Because it's a mountain lion. Why? I don't understand.
So our last episode was Colorado Parks and Wildlife,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a game warden in here, and this was off the record, but he just said it like this. He's like, look, here's the facts. Derek's Wolf's mountain lion was one of between 500 and 600 that were taken legally within the state. Mountain lions need to be managed.
Yeah.
His cat is, I'm not saying it wasn't a nice cat. His cat is no more special than any of those other ones that needed to be managed.
Sure.
It's just solely because of his platform.
For sure.
You know, it's like hunting just gets such a bad rap, and I could see why, you know, like I guess if you're going to post some of those photos, you got to expect to take a little bit of heat. You know, I take a little bit of heat just talking about it. But you're absolutely right. Fuck all those people, because they don't understand it. Like, it's not a trophy hunting thing. It's not, you know, and I think another thing that we brought up that was pretty important in that podcast that a lot of people don't understand is you are required by law in the state of Colorado, if you shoot anything, you have to eat it. If you're caught throwing the meat out or letting the meat spoil, you will get ticketed. Your hunting privileges will be taken away for life. Like, it's no joke. Like, so it's not just a trophy hunting thing.
Well, and the thing is, it goes back to what you and I were talking about, is just people don't want to celebrate people.
Exactly.
They don't, man. And that's the evil part about social media. And I feel like there's a lot of good from social media. There can be a lot of good if you can find it. And when you find it, cherish that and stick with it. But the thing is the trolling of it and all the nonsense that comes with it. Let's say you don't agree with what with Derek hunting, period, regardless of what it is. What is the point of you then going on there and going so far on the other side of being hateful? What is the point of that? To get attention? Because otherwise, I can tell you this right now, Derek's a mammoth of a man. And
yeah, I guarantee you nobody would say that to his face.
That's my point.
The comments
nobody, and you don't need to be a mammoth of a man like Derek, but the point is that nobody is going to go up to him and say those shitty things that they said on the internet to him, to his face. They're not. They're going to go up to him and they're going to ask him for a picture and an autograph and then go talk shit later. Or they're going to meet him and be like, damn, that's a genuine dude. Like everyone I've ever introduced to Derek or anyone that's ever had an interaction with him, they've never come back to me and been like, that dude's an asshole. And that's not true about all the athletes that I've been around before.
Yeah.
So
they're few and far between, honestly, at that level.
And it's too bad, because why? You're not different. You're just a human, dog. And the thing is, though, is at the end of the day, though, he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. He posted something that he's passionate about. He's feeding his family. He shot a really nice cat, and he said, "Man, I want to enjoy this moment." Took a picture of it, and he posted it. Whether you like it or not, why would you go to that far of the spectrum of hate when you wouldn't do that to his face? Because I could see if everyone was knocking on his door and saying it to his face, that'd be a whole different deal. That'd be a way different deal. Yeah. Because then I would respect you.
I hope he's got a Ring camera if that starts happening.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
good luck. Good luck. Because, I mean, that dude, I'm just saying, they're not going to do that.
No,
the point is they're not going to do that. And it's just unbelievable how
It's like the motherfuckers that have sent me, and I'm sorry to use that language like that, but that have sent me death threats.
Yeah.
They're not. There's no email signature with a phone number and address or
Sure.
return email address on there.
Sure.
It's like, come on, dude.
Why? Because you're talking about the only way we got here is because our forefathers did exactly what we were doing. They just didn't have a platform that we have to show what we do. And the thing is how do you think we got here? What did we do? We didn't get here without eating protein and animals. I'm sorry, but you can be delusional and lie all you want to yourself. That's not how we got here. Now, you can tell me and have your argument about why you think today we should or shouldn't do that, and that's fine. And it's okay to have a debate that way. It's not okay to be so hateful to say something behind your computer that you wouldn't go say to his face. That's not okay. It's okay to have a different point of view. That's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And if you have a different point of view than him or me or you or whatever, who cares? Cool, then let's debate that. But you're not going to sit there.
Don't do it in your basement behind closed
Not like
doors
that.
or behind your keyboard or
Not like
whatever.
that.
Yeah.
Not like that. And yeah, okay, the price of fame, there's a price to pay. Fair enough. But really, I mean, that doesn't set well with me, because I know Derek as a man and I know him as a person. I don't give a shit about him as an athlete.
And I love the fact that he's standing up for himself and on the side of conservation.
Me too.
And hasn't taken it down. He's taken it to that next level. And I feel like the hunting world needs more of that.
Agree.
To shed a light on it.
Agree.
You know, like for all the hate that he's getting, if he's inspiring, 100 young kids to get out and hunt, we
Agree.
need them.
Totally agree.
To keep it tradition alive, right, for a lot of families, it's something that is dying out for sure. I mean, you can see it in the sheer numbers that have been tracked over the last 30 years,
For sure.
So I commend Derek for that.
Me too.
And,
Joe Rogan, Cameron, like
all
these guys,
yeah.
there's more than that. But the point is that those guys have a platform that they can use to continue to at least support what you and I love, and other people love to go do. And you don't love to go kill. I'm sorry. That's not what you love.
And I don't feel like Derek's post was distasteful. And that's one thing I want to commend you on too. Like, I love the fact that you tell a story behind something rather than just like the grip and grin, like, here it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's something a lesson that most hunters could take, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have the time to explain. But I love the fact, like, you shot this incredible bull. Was that 2 seasons ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Incredible bull.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I know we talked about it on the last podcast, but just the whole story leading up to it, and then the way that you shared it on here, and there's multiple photos. It's like a 10-photo thing. There's a whole story behind
and
it, right?
We ate every ounce, by the way.
It's gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been long gone.
Yeah.
And the stuff that you get to go do and endure. Here's the thing that I've recently learned about myself. I was like, this was when I was in Alaska hunting black bear and grizzly bear, because I was freaking miserable some days.
Oh, dude.
The weather and the cold and the terrain
And the gear.
There was days where I was like, man, I feel freaking miserable.
Jeremy's got that bull pulled up.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That's so awesome, man.
Every ounce of that.
Yeah.
And the story behind that is so cool. You know?
Your brother.
My brother. He's always doing that. He's hilarious. But here's the thing. What I've found out, like, look at that.
That's incredible, man.
That's my favorite. That's
Bro,
what I was
like,
looking
come
for.
on.
That should be a scene in a movie, man.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's your own story right there.
But the cool part, the cool part about that thing is, it's made me. That's 2 generations, right? And 3 I told the story already. Our native.
You can tell it again, dude.
Our
I don't
Native
mind.
American
We got
history
time.
comes from this area.
Yeah, that's so dope.
Like, we've researched that, and to go back to this place is phenomenal. And when we get there, it's like you're home. It's a crazy feeling. I don't know how to explain it,
Right.
but it just feels home. Like,
Go back to that video of them riding horses, Jeremy, through that. I mean, to explain this to people that aren't watching the podcast, just this, I mean, That's freaking incredible, man. Just the way that the fog was rolled in, like those moments you can't replace. And I know it's probably even more surreal than what we're watching right now.
Yeah, and you know, you're
right?
horseback, you're 13 miles in from your truck, and there's fog, and you know, you're loaded with gear, and you're loaded with hope, and all these things to go and enjoy a journey and an adventure. Because honestly, the killing part, anytime I've ever killed an animal, there's always some sadness. My family tradition has always been to go up to that animal and pay respect and put a sign of the cross on their forehead, and then, of course, you know, bone them out and get the meat and eat the meat and all the things that we do. Share the meat. That's the other thing, man.
Yeah.
My fighters love that. They're like, Coach, you got any of that
kidding me?
elk? You got it, you know, yeah, heck yeah, man, I'll give you some, you know. That was the best stuff I ever had, you know. And so, again, if you don't agree with that, it's okay. It's okay. But to give hate on that to that magnitude it makes me sick. It makes me sick to my stomach to think that you're going to do that for attention. That makes me sick, because Derek's just like you. He's a guy. He's a person. He's a father. He's a husband. He's just like you, man. Like, just because he played football on in front of a TV screen, he's just, and to know Derek, like, the guy's a phenomenal dude. Yeah. And so, with all that said, I'm glad he's doing that, because we do need people like that. We need guys of high profile like he is to go out there and continue to shed light on
I agree,
the
100%.
conservational part and the part of that. And the thing is I when I think about my hunting trips, I explained one just earlier in the podcast. I don't even think we talked about killing a bear. It was all about the adventure and the cold and the plains and the joy I had with just spending time with my dad and my brother, and an adventure that we were on, and enduring the thing. And what I was going to say earlier is, what I've learned about myself is, a part of me just likes to suffer. There's just a part of me, I don't know why this is, because every time I go hunting, I'm like, what am I doing? But there's a part of me that there's a void in my heart that has to be filled with some suffering. And to go hunting,
it makes life a little bit sweeter for me.
Way sweeter. Mm-hmm. But the suffer is why it's sweeter. Because, you know, you don't have a toilet and a shower. You don't have a warm bed. And you don't have your wife next to you. And you don't have the heat in your home. And you don't, it's all self-survival and perseverance and preservation and all the things that you do out there. And there's a lot of suffering. I'm sorry. There's a ton of suffering out there.
There's a ton of adversity, man.
And it's okay. That's good. How is that not good? That's what I don't understand about the hate. Then you've not done it. And if you've done it, you obviously missed it.
Yeah, and that, I think it goes back to that old cliche saying, like, don't knock something unless you've tried it, right?
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. But if some people have done it and been like, that wasn't for me, that's fine. That's fair.
Cool.
It's fair. But the thing is then
you don't get to choose for everybody else.
But you missed the journey too of it, by the way.
100%.
And that one trip helped forge who you are today. Sorry, but that's true. You don't have to admit it to your buddies that don't like with that, because you don't want to look bad. But it helped forge who you were. I'm sorry, it did.
Yeah.
There's no way your perspective's the same if you went and spent a week in the wilderness solely on your preservation of getting yourself out of there.
Yeah.
There's no way that you didn't change. You know, it
changes me every season. This year was the first year that I did a solo hunt, and holy shit, man,
that's wild. It was
a different level.
It's a different deal.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if we talked about this, but this is a great example of this. Forever I've talked about taking my team on a backpacking trip.
Yeah.
Did we talk about this?
I think we touched on it the last podcast, but I don't know.
Okay.
That was just a year ago. So yeah, you had done one already. So I'm pretty sure that we talked about it. I'd have to go back and listen to it, but let's talk about it. I mean, it doesn't matter.
So
dude. Let's talk about it if you got time.
Here's the thing. Forever I've talked about taking my team on a backpacking trip. And most of these, you know, young men and women have never even, a lot of them, some of them grown up here, they've never even gone into the wilderness at all, even though it's just right here. And so, you know, I was like, you know what? I want to do this year. and this was last year. I want to take my team. I want to take as many of them that want to go, and we're going to get a head start on this thing, and we're going to go in the summer when it's the best weather, even though it's going to be shitty weather. But we're going to go and we're going to go have some fun, man. And we're going to get off the grid. Your phone won't work, and you got to be present where your feet are, and you don't have to depend on Bert and Ernie, your 2 feet. And we're going to have to do this thing, you know? And so I proposed it to the team, and 18 of them went. Okay? And I was like, hell yeah, this is a good
Josh
turnout.
Frim didn't go.
He didn't, pussy. He said he had a wedding.
Sorry for the stab, Josh.
He
I
had
had
a
to throw
wedding
that in
or
there or something.
some nonsense.
Yeah.
Anyway, 18 of them went, okay? And Dustin and Caruso are the only 2 that really have ever gone and done that. So 16 of them had no idea. So we went out, and with the help of my brother lives in Buena Vista. My brother helped me with a route that's near Buena Vista there that would work out well, where we were able to camp every night on a lake.
That's awesome.
We'd hike and then camp on a lake, and that's what we did for 4 days. And we're gonna have to
These
go over,
all high alpine.
yeah, we're gonna have to go
Stuff.
over passes,
Awesome.
like 13,000+ feet passes, you know, to cross over into another drainage on the other side, and then get on the valley floor into a lake, you know, that kind of thing. And so I prepped the team for it, gave them the gear that gave them a list of gear that they were going to need, broke their balls multiple times about, hey, you got to make sure this is no joke. Like we're not going to the doctor if you get a owie.
Right.
And, you know, like really managed expectations. Told him about the gear, like, you know, the emails that I sent is
Like, don't skimp. Buy the right shit.
buy the right stuff.
Make sure you got the right stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
The comprehensive list, plus went over their gear, brought it in, showed them how to pack a backpack. Like, this is how novice of people we're dealing with, okay? And
That's so dope that you did that, though. I mean,
I know it was
Yeah.
so fun, man. So we went in, 18 of us went into the woods. My son went with us as well, and we went in, got on the trail. We were near Buena Vista. My brother helped shuttle us a little bit because we where we started was not going to be the end point, so we shuttled our
that's cool.
trucks over to the other side. My brother lives in Buena Vista, so he was able to help us and help me put together some of, because he was going to go with us.
damn,
but
you need a school bus at that point.
yeah, right. I know. So we shuttled over, and then we came back over, and then boom, we got on the trail. So we get on the trail. First day was going to be the easiest day because it was going to be the latest start. And then I just knew every afternoon we were going to get smoked with some type of rain or thunderstorm or both, you know, because it's just what it does in the mountains.
That's what happens.
That's what it happens. And so, and I prefaced all of them and you know, gave them all the warning and the managed of expectations. Like, you're going to be wet, miserable. It's going to suck. And when you're done, you're going to be like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And you're going to look back and be like, that was the best time ever. And I prefaced it all that way, right? I never painted this rosy picture like it's going to be amazing. And
we're going to have s'mores.
Yeah, I mean, we did, but it wasn't, you know what I mean? So anyway, we go up first day, find the lake, and you know, we walked like 7-8 miles the first day and walked in. So that was going to be the easiest day. Well, the weather, unfortunately, if you remember through the summer in the mountains for a minute, it was just raining everywhere, especially in the summertime. Any mountain range I looked at for a month leading up to the trip was just going to rain.
Oh, and it can all change in a couple thousand feet, too.
Easy.
It's like,
Easy. And so I told the guys, yo, it looks like this entire trip, but a day is going to rain pretty much the whole trip. And it's going to suck. And we're going to have some fun, but it's going to be a different experience, you know. And so the second day we had to go over Browns Pass.
how many people dropped out then?
None, because they were
that's
8
dope.
miles in.
And they're scared of
And
you,
they're
probably.
city kids, and they're not getting back, dog. And so they're like, I don't know how I'm getting back, so I'm stuck. Their phones didn't work, which was amazing. And, you know, one of the things they said to me after the trip was, Coach, I learned about some of these guys, and I've been training with them for years, that I knew nothing. I didn't know that story, which was cool. You know, they got to sit there, and all you can do is speak to each other and be present. And so, you know, we go over the next day, we have to go over Browns Pass, and you're thinking it's about a 13,000-ish foot pass to get over the next one. Well, the weather was terrible when we woke up, and it got even worse as we got higher, as you know. And the guys were looking at me. Remember, there's a line of guys, and it's probably on my Instagram if you wanna find it. But there's a line of guys standing behind me, and they're all looking at me like, "You son of a bitch! I can't believe you brought us up here to do this." And it's if you keep going,
you gotta scroll down maybe, or
no, the other way. Go the other way.
It was after the hunt, was it?
It was the way you're going is past that. Let's see. Yeah, so you might have been going the right way. But anyway, it's up there. You'll find it. But the thing is we go up there. Got to go over Browns Pass, and when we go over Browns Pass, it's way past that. We go to Browns Pass. You have to cross over, and you know when you get higher, the weather's even worse. If it's worse down where we were,
chances are you're dealing with twice as bad, twice as cold.
Cold, bad, it's raining, sleeting, snowing,
thunder,
fog, the whole
lightning.
thing. Okay, it was bad. We got up there, it was bad. And so they are all looking at me like, "I can't believe you brought us up here, look," you know. And I told them, I said, "Listen, when we get to the top, we're not stopping. It's going to be so cold on top. We just need to drop down, and the temp will change by at least 15 degrees if we just don't hang on top, though. So get up top, come down. It's raining, all these things, but we're not stopping. So if you're tired, too bad, just go, okay?" And so anyway, we get up top and we do all that, and then we come down, and then we find the next lake where we're going to stay, and then some of the guys didn't set their rain flies up right, and their tents got flooded, you know, inside. And so, like, you're dealing with some novice stuff here, okay? And anyway, they go, and we endure this 4 days of this huge loop that we did and stayed at the lake. Some guys had never fished before. Caught fish.
I was gonna ask,
ate fish on the
that's
spot.
So awesome.
That's
my favorite fishing is those high alpine lakes.
It was
cutthroats, wild trout, native
brookies,
trout.
like they had all of them. And so the cool part is they got to do this. They never eaten fresh fish like that before that you just caught, and then we cooked it over the fire with a stick, like legit just cooked it over the fire, you know. Or they found ways to prop them up and cook them and ate them. And, you know, some guys had never done that before ever. And the other thing is they'd never seen stars like that in their life, like at night. And, you know, for the first few nights, it was so stormy that you couldn't see the stars. And I was like, guys, I hope we get one night that it opens up so you can see these stars without the lights from the city, you know.
Shit, that's life-changing, man.
And those guys, you know, they got to see that the last day we were there. That day was it was crazy. The last day we were there was a phenomenal day. Sun the whole day. That night, you had the black sky with all the stars gleaming, and
that's what I love about being on the Western Slope or outside the city is you don't get that light pollution either, man. It's so badass.
It's awesome.
It puts life in perspective.
I know, it's cool.
Think, man.
It's cool.
Like it really does.
And they've never seen that before, and to see the scope of that through beginner eyes is so cool. To share that, to see their joy from catching a fish and be like, "I did it," and then to eat that same fish right there, and to make they didn't know how to make fire, know how to set up a tent, didn't know how to pack a backpack. Didn't know how to didn't know that, you know, the Big Dipper is actually up there.
One of the guys brought 2 pairs of pants or something
that's a trip I took with my buddies.
Oh, okay.
About 15 years
Maybe
ago.
That's what we talked about.
Yeah, that's what we talked about.
Funny.
And so, you know, we went and did that, and you know, after when we got back to the truck, one of the things I wanted to do was do a video testimony on what the guys had taken from the trip and what they would do differently, you know, and what they enjoyed. And, you know, almost a resounding yes of what they enjoyed was Browns Pass.
Really?
The suck of the whole thing,
The worst part.
There was the highlight of every single one of them. There was other highlights, but the highlight from almost every single one of them was enduring Brown's Pass, getting through it, getting to the truck, and being like, I did that. And in their video testimony, like when we did it, it was like 2 minutes each guy, you know, get up, tell me what you enjoyed, you know, what you would change next year if you did it, and da-da-da, right? And they did that, and the whole group was like, Brown's Pass
Unanimous,
is the
huh?
highlight.
Yeah.
Not suck. They said it sucked, but it would always be like, it sucked, but it was a highlight, you know? And so to see that, it is those guys, and I told them, if you never go do this again, you'll never forget that. And those guys still talk about that to this day. And we did that in, I think it was July. It might have been August, but it was somewhere around there. And so that piece was so cool, man. It was such a fun time. And
you never really forget enduring moments, do you?
No.
'Cause, like, those are the biggest moments that stuck out to me as a kid. Like, I'll never forget. I mean, I grew up here, did some backpacking trips here, but to go do a backpack trip like 7 or 8 miles in as a kid in northern Montana over glaciated peaks is a whole nother animal. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
sure.
I was crying for my mom at one point. My uncles were like, no, you get your little fat ass up and let's get fucking hiking because we got to try to get to camp.
No one's going to help you.
Yeah.
No
And
one's
I'll
gonna help
never
you.
forget that.
I know.
And then after I did that, I was like, okay, well,
I can do a lot of things now. And that was the cool part, man, is getting to share that knowledge with them, but also watching their beginner eyes to get to see a lot of stuff that they'd never done before. Some of those kids have asked me about, hey, Coach, if I went and got my hunter safety, I'd like to pursue hunting maybe because that's like hunting, right? I'm like, yeah. It's similar, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it's a little
like
different.
7 days.
Yeah, it's a little different, but it's similar. Yeah, you know. And so the introduction to that stuff of 18 kids, that only 2 of which, well, probably 3 because my son was there. So to have 15 kids who've never done that before and to get to see that, if they never do anything again, at least they got the joy of doing that. They got rid of the fear of a bear is going to eat you every step of the way through the trail, right? What if a bear, what if it's not there, And so they never saw a bear. They never saw shit, And so it was cool for
Anybody
them.
scare themselves?
Well, I think a few times they scare themselves for sure. But and to see their team bonding, the bonding that they had was not just with them, but with me, and you get to get off the mat and get out of work and see a different scope
There's
of
a
people.
different type of bonding that goes on out there, especially when you've gone through something like that.
Yeah,
It's just like getting onto the mat, but in a different
it is
perspective,
different,
right?
It is different. And we take it for granted because getting on the mat feels normal, but it's very intimidating and different for new people. My whole point in saying that, though, is that's not bad. You can't tell me if you threw hate out there about what Derek or any other hunter or whatever, if you threw hate out there, you've not endured something like that. You've not enjoyed a journey of something like that. And if you did, you forgot. And if you forgot, you should go entrench yourself with something like that and go find some peace and joy so that you don't spit so much hate from that. Because the story I just described was not made up. That's a fact. That story is fact, and it happened. And those kids' lives will forever be changed and a memory etched in their head that they'll never lose. Because the story you brought up about my buddies like 15-ish years ago, they still talk about that when I see them. And so and then never done another one. And so that's my point is that's not bad. You can't convince me ever in my life that that's bad, because that I shared that moment with those people, and I saw what they were able to go through, and I saw the suck they went through, and I saw the joy on their face.
Some of the comedy that you get out of it too is
It's
just real.
hilarious.
I'm thinking back in
Hilarious.
my mind and just like some of the stupid shit that's happened to me and my buddies. I'm
hilarious.
not laughing at you,
No, it's
but like
hilarious.
I've been going through those moments, and I'll tell you a story once we get off of mic here.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
It's pretty funny.
I mean, watching the guys wring their clothes out from their tent, I was like,
God.
what happened? Oh, I didn't, and like a lot of them, when their video testimony, it said, one of the things I would change for next year is listen to Coach and bring more better gear and warmer clothes.
Right.
Because, when we left, it was 80 degrees and 90 degrees in Denver. And I told him it's not going to be that way when we get to.
A lot of people die that way, honestly, man.
I know.
It's crazy because I'll go up and photography is one of my favorite pastimes, and getting out and shooting wildlife is awesome. It's like my favorite thing to do, like capturing that moment. And one of my favorite things to do in the summer is get up at first light or before first light, and it's 45 minutes from here, and I can be at the summit of Evans.
Nice.
Right, in the truck, and it's easy, and then get out and hike down to where the goats are at or something. It's so awesome because hardly anybody's out there. There's a few crazy dudes out there on bicycles or running or doing whatever at that altitude. But I mean, you'll leave here and it'll be 75, and I'll get up there and it's 32 degrees as the sun's coming up. It is crazy.
Yeah, it's cool.
Or it might be snowing.
It could be snowing.
Yeah.
No, it was cool. So, that's the thing is stop talking shit, go do something.
Exactly.
Like, stop talking shit about, go celebrate what others are doing and then go celebrate your stuff,
Yeah, I wonder how many of those people are actually doing anything at all other than watching other people. That's the problem.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's whack.
Hey, Jeremy, if you got a second, pull up Derek's Instagram real quick. Did you see the video he posted of that lion hunt? I thought that was pretty cool. Because that, going back to it, this kind of tells the story. It's just a little, if you go to his reels,
look
I think.
At him. Look at him right here.
Yeah. He's dying.
He's tired, cold, and like, oh, wow. That was some stuff.
That's a pro athlete right there, too. He's still in phenomenal shape.
Agree.
And, go to the reels. And, maybe, I think it's that one of him holding the cat. Click on that and give us some volume. The music they put with it, too, is super dope.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you click the little... I don't know if you've seen this yet, but yeah. Sunshine beating on the good times, moonlight racing from the grave. Super tasteful, though.
Yeah.
This is him.
Awesome.
Dying.
He's dying.
Falling down a mountain.
I know, Derek. Look how steep that is. He's tired.
Oh my God. The dogs are barely running up it, And those are hounds. But pretty tasteful. Not showing the shot, not, none of that.
Jeremy, did you see the one of that trip on my page or no?
I know that I had to have
go back to Mark's page
Hang
real
on
quick.
a second.
Yeah.
I wanted to see that, but
yeah.
I couldn't find it.
Go to the top of it.
I think it's you standing at like a national forest sign or something, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, keep going. It's down a little bit.
While we're on this, I love the fact that you're posting the daily quotes, man. I read them every day. I'm a big fan of quotes if they're good, and I love yours, man. So
the story behind that is every year it's up above there somewhere. It might be even in like a reel, but it's above that. Anyway, the story behind those quotes is
I'm gonna keep watching, see if we can snag it here.
Every year I give my team a gift, and we have a party every year to celebrate our accomplishments that we had through the year. And so it's hard in MMA to celebrate as a team because we don't fight as a team, meaning we don't all go out there like a football team and play the game and then win or lose, you're all together. That doesn't happen. You and I fight on one weekend, the other guy fights on this weekend, and it's sporadic like that constantly. And yeah, we get it. We get moments of celebration. We cheer each other when we see each other, and that's cool, but we never get to celebrate as a team. And so I had an idea years ago that why don't we put together a party to celebrate each other and have some food. But what I did is I took it way past that. I said, during the day, I want to make this a day event, and I want to bring in guest speakers. So I want to bring in financial advisors and talk to these guys about what they're doing with their money. I want to bring in inspirational people and bring in athletes. I want to bring regular Joes in. I want to bring people in, they come, they speak to the team. And they give them 30 minutes of their time, and then you know they run with a theme or whatever that we talk about, and they do that, and then that's the day session. And then the evening session, we always pick like what we're going to wear. So this year, they wanted to do like a mobster type look. And so we went out, and then they come in, they bring their significant other or their mom or their dad or whatever, and they bring them to the dinner. And the dinner portion, we have food for them. And then Jordan Kurtz puts together, he and I go over this highlight reel for a month or two before it ever happens. And he highlight reels the whole team. And then we vote prior to this on accomplishments through the year. Best knockout, best submission, fighter of the year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like all
so
these
it's like
things.
an awards.
It's an awards.
But it's much more than that,
it's
right?
different,
Because it's
though.
coming from your peers, not...
Correct.
Yeah. An
Coach of the
academy.
year, you know, all these things. So, and we do that, and then we get up there and we have an amateur talent show, like for our own entertainment, and it's hilarious, right?
So like everything from people dancing to
it's hilarious,
like
man.
you can do whatever you
yeah,
want.
you can do
I
whatever
guess.
you want, just entertain.
But you
us.
got to do something.
But don't make it shitty. Yeah. So like the one that won was Alex Hernandez's girlfriend Alexis. She and her dad is a drummer, but Alexis, she won this year's amateur talent show.
Nice.
She had like Home Depot buckets, pans, the floor, the concrete floor, and they did this drum thing that they did together, her and her dad, and they killed it. And
Like
so
a street performer
it was
type
dope.
thing.
Yeah, it was
That's
super
cool.
dope. And
Yeah.
so anyway, there's stuff like that, or they do dumb stuff, but it's hilarious. So, and if they suck, the guys have socks and stuff, and they throw it at them, and it's pretty funny.
Bronco bricks.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought they were going to come back this
right?
year, bro.
I know. Yeah, exactly. They were pretty bad. So
I almost made some myself just to make some money.
So, oh yeah, here you go. You found it.
Oh, sweet. Oh, I haven't seen these yet.
Yeah. So this is the trip.
So cool.
This is me just chatting, but you can go back and watch this later. But these are the video testimonies that I was talking about that the guys did.
Oh, that's cool. There's Dustin,
There's-
Wyatt.
yeah, there's
that's
Yusuf.
cool.
That's the first fish he ever caught in his life.
Really?
Yeah, and he never eaten one before. He's like, okay, and he used one of the guys, you know, and so it was cool, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
And
He's such a savage. I'm a fan of his.
he's
dude,
awesome.
man. Like,
Yeah, he's a great kid. I love him. But yeah, you know, there's all these kids. I mean, they're up here doing. See, okay, here's what I was talking about. This is getting close to Browns Pass. It is shit tea right here,
yeah.
and it was
A
cold.
lot of down heads right there, isn't it?
Fog,
Yeah.
looking at me like, dude, and I had to take a video. I was like, I gotta take a video of these guys looking at me like, you son of a bitch, you know. And so, but yeah, this is a cool representation of what we did, but it only encapsulates a small portion of what happened, you know. Sure. So anyway, we have this. We call it a Legend and Legacy Day. Okay. And so I came up with this, and I said, I want to call this, what do you call this award thing or whatever? We call it Legend and Legacy. We're creating legend and legacy, you know, like when what we do in life and all these things, you know, and then of course in fighting, we're creating these things and they parallel. And so anyway, in the evening section, come in and then we have an awards thing, and Jordan Kurtz puts this phenomenal video together, and then we highlight all these awards, and they come up and we give them awards. And I actually make dog tag awards, because one of the things you'll see when the guys go fight is they wear dog tags to the ring, to the cage.
I love that. Yeah.
And then they transfer the dog tags over to the coaching staff, and then the dog tag awards, these guys started added to their dog tags, being like, look at my bling, you know what I mean?
Oh shit.
So it's pretty cool. I didn't
Yeah.
have that intention, but that's what they did. And so anyway, the gift I gave to the guys this year was a journal. And I said, this is such a powerful tool if you use it. And I've journaled forever, daily. Like, it's another daily habit that I constantly do. And when I set my journal up, and for those of you listening, if you've never journaled, I encourage you to do it. But you can totally steal this whole format if you want. But when I set my journal up, I first have what I'm grateful for, and then I have what I want to pray for. I have my big 3 tasks that I'm going to do for the day. I find a verse in the Bible that I've read that day and I put it down, and then I have a quote. And so all those things, that's how I organize my day. And then I go back and then my big 3 tasks, I check off my big 3 tasks for the day. Like, this is one of my tasks today, to be here, you know, and I that was one of my big 3s today. And so, but when you go through the organization,
That's awesome. We made the top 3, huh?
yeah, right. So when we make the organization of that, what I would do personally before I gave the guys the journal is I would find a quote, and I have in my notes on my phone for over a decade, when I read good things or I see good quotes, I write them down in a note folder in my phone called Great Quotes, and I just put them in there. So I got a decade of these quotes that I've compiled. And so what I did is because I'm a competitive bastard, what I did is I hand wrote in every single one of these journals, over 50 plus journals. I hand wrote our 4 agreements, the book, the 4 agreements. You ever read that book?
It's in my queue, but I think I started it. I need to finish it, but
Yeah,
no,
so
I haven't been all the way through it.
I stole it from the 4 agreements book. They have their 4 agreements, right? Be impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions, all those things. Okay. So they have that. So I took and I put in our 4 agreements, you know, we have our 4 agreements for the team: be on time, be coachable, be a good teammate, have fun, right? Those are our 4 agreements. So I hand wrote all this stuff in the journal. And then I took my own personal journal that I was going to use for this year, and I hand wrote all these quotes every page. Well, uniquely and conveniently for the crew I deal with, I timed how long that was going to take. It took me 4 hours and 20 minutes. And I was like, of course it took 4:20 for you stoners, you know? And so, but I said, I challenge you guys. I'm going to give you the list of quotes in our WhatsApp group that we have as a team. And I challenge you guys to beat my time and handwrite them all consecutively. Can you beat my time at 4:20? Because what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to write 1 a day, because I want you to see some that you might see in November, you might see in July. I want you to see them now. And then when you go write in your journal daily, it's already there for you. Now, yes, you got to put the grateful prayer, big 3, and all that stuff. You got to do that on your own. You got to write all that stuff down. But that's where that came from. And so
that's awesome.
What I said is, I said, look, guys, because social media kind of annoys me, and I don't love being on social media. And they're always breaking my balls about, Coach, you need to have more presence on social media, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And so I said, look, guys, I will make a commitment to post our legend and legacy quotes through the year on my story daily, and I will do that. That's one of my commitments that I'll make to you that I hate doing. Not because I don't want to share the quotes, but because
it's a pain in the ass of lining it up, and
I've been doing it.
Yeah.
And so
I love it, man. I love seeing it. So.
And the legend and legacy thing is the phrase we give for our party. And then you see how I keep tagging the B on there?
Yeah.
Well, the B comes from the cancer.
I was going to ask you if that.
Yeah. So the bee that I got stung with, the story I told earlier, in my head, that's the messenger. That was the messenger to say, yo, dog, you got cancer. And I'm going to be the messenger, even though you're not going to find this out for a month after staff. And the bee was the messenger. So what's cool is my daughter, Brooklyn, who we talked about, she said, Dad, I was like, maybe we should make some bracelets for just cancer awareness type thing. Yeah. And she said, well, I want to make them. Like, she's real crafty, you know. I was like, okay. Well, orange, the color orange signifies kidney cancer survivor. Okay. So I love the color black, and the bee is obviously the messenger. So what we did is we gave, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but we gave
oh, there's a little bee on there.
Yeah, there's a bee charm.
So we're looking at like a black beaded bracelet with 2 orange beads, and then is it glass or?
It's like a metal charm.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And she made one for you and Jeremy to have.
No way.
Yeah. So
that's all right.
That's awesome.
And it's nothing crazy, but it's just a reminder of survival. It's a reminder of a messenger. It's a reminder of obviously my story. It's a reminder of cancer awareness. And so, but
That's so dope.
yeah,
Thank you.
so of course, you'll have to thank her. She made it.
All right. We'll do it in person.
But the point is like this stuff, that's the kind of stuff that we give. And then this year we gave journals, and that's where to tie it all back together. That's why I've been doing that stuff on there, is because it all stemmed back from my commitment and the journals that I gave, and then the quotes that I've compiled over the years, and then the team camaraderie of what we've got going on for this year. The theme we've got going on is those journals and those quotes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it because I'm not on the team, but I feel like I can enjoy a little part of it there. So
no, it's awesome.
That's dope. Well, shit, Mark, we've been at it for close to 3 hours, and we went way deep on this one.
Yeah.
But I love it, and cheers, man. I'm glad that you're
cheers
here.
to you, man. Thank
really
you guys.
glad that you're
Congratulations
here. I'm glad
to you
you're
guys.
sitting here. Thank you, man.
And thanks to your
Congratulations
fans.
to you. Yeah.
Your listeners and the fans of the show, they reach out to me every time I do this.
That's awesome.
And it's always cool to hear from you guys. You don't always have to agree with everything I say, and that's fine. But it's great to hear from them, and it's always usually good stuff, And I'm always, like I said before, I'm always humbled and honored to come on here and to get a chance to share my story. I'm just a regular dude, man. I'm just getting an opportunity to live a full life, and I just appreciate the platform to get to come on and do that again.
Dude, I've told you this multiple times. I don't care who's in that chair. Whenever you want it, it's yours. So
yeah, thank you,
kick
man.
'em. I'll fire them right out of there, bro.
I appreciate it.
Before we jump, do you have a few more minutes?
I do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Before we jump off, what do you got coming up? I know that there's some. We didn't even talk about any fighting. This is why I love this, right?
Yeah.
Because we get all kinds of. There's nothing scripted here. It just goes where it goes. But some big fight news came out the last couple of days, right? Like April's going to be super busy for you guys. What do you got coming up, and some of the fights and just that whole thing?
we've
Shed
been
some light on that for a minute.
We've been so blessed to consistently just have success and growth through our team and our coaching staff, and man, it takes a village to do what we do, and I have the best staff around, man. I have such a phenomenal coaching staff, and my support staff with my family, and man, my team is the best team I've ever had, man. They're just such great kids, and they're a young team. I have some vets sprinkled in there, but they're a young team, and they've really come up through the ranks and done some cool stuff, man. And so, next weekend we have 8 people fighting next weekend in 4 different states. And so
Next weekend? Oh, shit.
And so which is the weekend of the February 17th.
Okay.
And we just found out yesterday that Alex Hernandez is going to fight Jim Miller in the UFC on ESPN next weekend.
Oh, nice.
And so that was an additional fight that got added to an already crazy busy weekend that we're going to have. And so, you can imagine what the logistics look like and feel like when you've got 8 guys fighting and you got 4 different states we're going to be in. You can imagine what those logistics look like. And they're all looking at me like, how are we going to do this? And I'm like,
private jet, dog.
yeah, I'm like, very carefully. Yeah. So we got a lot of cool stuff going on there. April 15th, we've got 4 guys on an ESPN UFC card. Dustin Jacoby is fighting in the top 15 on that fight.
Is that Kansas City?
It is. It just announced
that's
yesterday
awesome.
It's going to be Kansas City.
I think Chris is back
Chris
on that?
Gutierrez is fighting Pedro Munoz in a top 10 fight, top 10 in the world. Brandon Royval is fighting for the opportunity to go fight for the world title after this fight. I think Brandon's number 2 or 3 in the world, and he's fighting number 4 or something like that. And so, but Brandon Royval has an opportunity to go win this fight and then next go fight for the world title, which is, our
awesome,
Super
man.
Bowl.
Yeah.
And so, and then Zach Cummings is someone I've trained for a long time, has been injured for years, and is going to make his retirement fight in Kansas City. He's from Kansas City. So
Okay.
his retirement fight is going to be that night. And so, there's so many options and opportunities. Anthony Smith is fighting again soon in late April, May. Rob Wilkinson, who
Are you still cornering him? Or?
yeah, we just
okay.
I didn't coach Anthony for his last fight,
Mm-hmm.
and but he's back, and
Awesome.
we're getting back to work and getting busy, and so we'll be ready to fight here in late April, May. And Rob Wilkinson just won the PFL world title last year. He is the 205 world champion in PFL, and he made $1 million in the final fight doing that. And he's back to go defend his title.
Rad. I saw that post.
Yeah. He's fighting April 1st. And, you know, some of these young regional kids that are coming up are doing amazing things.
Oh, the LFA and just all the other, like Sparta, there's so many.
There's so many.
There's so much to watch outside of the UFC, and I encourage people to do it too.
Yeah. And, you know, guys like Jonathan Martinez, who's done some incredible stuff. He's fighting number 13 in the world. Yeah. And so, like I said earlier, you know, you go through, I remember Jonathan and Chris Gutierrez having, being just babies in this thing, and just being boys too, you know, when I first met them, and they're grown-ass men now, and they're doing big stuff, and it's cool to see, you know, Dustin Jacoby, and it's just cool to see like our young crop coming up, the regional kids coming up, you know, 7 of which are all regional kids next weekend. Only one is fighting in the UFC, and to watch the growth of that, and you know, all that happen. We've had some new additions and some UFC fighters like Vanessa Demopoulos, David Onama, Julian Marquez. Some of those kids have come back over. Anthony Smith is back. And so, you know, those are...
Glad to see Anthony back with you guys.
Those are cool. You know, Anthony and I have shared a long time together. Yeah. And we had a little break for a second, but, you know, the band's back together. And so...
Awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see him back in the room and see him and Rob getting a chance to work together, which is... super cool. Awesome. I always invite you guys, but you're always welcome to come down on a Friday morning and watch them spar.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know? I'm there, dude.
Yeah,
I'll be there for sure. Yeah.
So you guys are always invited. You
I got to bring anything? Coffee,
shorts, or bring whatever you want to drink and popcorn, because it's they're throwing down.
Yeah, dude, that'd be cool, man.
They're throwing down.
Okay. Yeah.
Come in on a Friday morning and those guys are going at it. You get to see some free UFC fights.
Oh, I'm there, dude.
Yeah,
for sure.
And sparring, the way I do sparring is feels very much like a fight. And so the music's loud, and they do the walkout, and you have corners, and there's a winner and a loser in those rounds, and so yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. There's a lot of young regional guys that are going to be in the UFC soon coming up, and like Jacoby Jones and Markel Medeiros, those two kids are coming up. Luis Gurel, he's another one, and so there's so many. I mean, Yusuf Zalal has been killing it.
Yeah, what's up with it? Did he take a step back from the UFC for a minute?
The UFC released him, and
why?
I don't know. And he has gone. Outside of the UFC, he's had 2 first-round finishes.
He'll be back.
You'll
shortly.
See him back soon. Yeah, he'll be back soon. He's talented. Like, that kid legitimately will be a world champion. You watch.
And his finishes too. I mean,
he's
just
nasty.
His attitude,
he's
everything.
Yeah. And such a great kid. And he's another, like Brandon Royval. I've been training since he was a teenager. Yusuf, I've been training since he was a teenager. Markel, I've been training since he was a teenager. So. Get a lot of these guys that are there, and turnover is very rare unless they're just not a good fit. And so, but yeah, man, just a lot of cool stuff. I appreciate you asking. It's such a fun thing that I get to do. I'm blessed to be a part of their journeys, and I'm thankful that they keep me on that journey. And
that's awesome, man.
They've really forged the way to get to where they're at, whether they're on the local regional scene or in the highest level in the UFC type thing. And it's just cool to see the growth that they've had, man. It's a cool deal. So,
and for everybody listening, you guys do offer for your everyday people that work a 9 to 5 or whatever. You guys offer classes for them, for kids. Yeah, it's much more than just a fight gym, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the mass of our of what we have there is just regular adults that have a regular old, life. They're not fighters, and kids. We train a lot of kids, and we have phenomenal programs, morning, afternoons, evenings. We have such a phenomenal program, great turnout, and such cool people, man. We get to meet a lot of cool people. And yeah, I mean, if you come in, you say you heard this on here, we'll give you 20% off.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, come
That's
in.
awesome, man.
We would love to do that, and have you guys come in. Nice, you guys. Or if you guys are not from here but you train, like for example, you roll jiu-jitsu and you're in Denver one day, come in and just drop in and come train for the day or whatever. So you guys are always welcome.
That's the hardest thing when I'm traveling is trying to find a gym that will let you just drop in.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I don't mind ever. Yeah. And so Saturdays, we always have an open roll at 10 a.m. Any gym person's invited to come do that. So guys are always invited to come try that stuff, or your audience or whatever. So, we
super rad.
MMA has changed and saved my life, a ton of people's lives. And, if that's something you've always wanted to do, stop thinking about it and go do it.
Yeah, I encourage it too, man. Like life-changing, definitely a mindset-changing thing for me. Maybe not necessarily life-changing, because I grew up wrestling. I started way later in my life.
Yeah.
And still trying to earn some stripes, you know what I mean? Just even get to there. But for example, I just recently started back. I'm going to this lunch crunch or midday madness, whatever they're calling this jiu-jitsu roll up here at BTT. Awesome people. Dave Roberts, shout out, is teaching that. But the other day I was pulling out of here and some two young kids in a jacked up, I think it was a Land Rover or something, just start laying on the horn on me because I pulled out in front of them. But they were doing 60 miles an hour coming down, and then pulling up next to me, flipping me off. But since I just went and rolled that day, I wasn't too aggro about it. It's just I didn't even do anything, dude. Whatever, I didn't even look at, I was just I'm just going to let this go.
Sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you guys again.
A little bit calmer in life. Yeah,
it does, man. It's great. But thank you guys again. You guys are killing it, man. Keep it up. I'm really happy for you guys. Keep it up, and however I can help, continue to let me know. And I'll be back. We'll have some more stuff to talk about for sure at some point.
Feeling is mutual, man. Happy that you're sitting here.
Yeah, me too.
You're always welcome. And I'm glad that you're on the other side of everything that you've been facing the last couple months, and excited for the season coming up, man.
Yeah, me too.
I love the fact that I can turn on the TV every weekend and see Mark.
See my mug on there. Yeah.
It makes it that much more exciting to watch, is when you follow it a little bit and you follow some of these people and then you have a personal relationship. It's definitely brought my fan to a new level. So
that's awesome. Yeah, well, thank you guys again, man, and to your audience, appreciate you for listening. It sounds like it's a long one, but hopefully it's a good one. So
no, it was, man. We didn't miss a beat on it, so
good.
Yeah,
awesome, bro.
We're setting records here.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
you.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Cheers.
See ya. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.